Hello, good morning. You're welcome to The Big Issue. The Big Issue is live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin at Dabraka in Accra. We are also live on 97.3 City FM and on City TV. Around the globe, we are at citynewsroom.com. This morning, about 40 corporate institutions have converged on the Burma Camp Leisure Center for the annual City Business Olympics. We will join the team later on after the program to also participate. And indeed, the City Business Olympics is the biggest corporate gathering of people in the workplaces to have games, compete, against each other, bond within or amongst themselves, win trophies and acquire bragging rights for the next year. It's an exciting event, and if you are here to get to the Burma Camp Leisure Center, you may be running late. But back to the big issue. We will be looking at a number of things today. First of all, we will look at the impasse between the Ministry of Communications and GIBBA and what really the role of StarTimes must be. GIBBA, in the course of the week, raised some concerns about what the role of StarTimes will be. They claim that government was seeking to hand over Ghana's digital terrestrial television space to a foreign entity, StarTimes, which is from China. Government has said that GIBBA got it wrong, and all that it is seeking to do is to get StarTimes to supply and install equipment for the digital platform. We will unpack the arguments for you this morning on the show. Also, this week, fuel prices at the pump hit the dreaded 5 cedi mark. Indeed, 5 cedi 12 pesos in some places, and then 5 cedi 18 pesos at some other places. We want to ask, what really should our government be doing in respect of fuel prices? Is a deregulation working as expected? And are we leaving the citizens of this country to the pressures of what happens on the world market or the world stage? What is government supposed to be doing for us? Do we go back to the era of subsidies, or we must just ensure that our public transportation system is good enough so the effect of this will not be felt on many people? We will also look at some audit issues. This week we saw a supposed leaked forensic audit report of some ministries and agencies. About 800 million cedis we hear could not be accounted for or were misappropriated. We will look at that in some detail and ask some questions. The Auditor General this week has also been asking and speaking tough. He was the guest speaker at this year's Ban Radio lecture, where he made some interesting proposals. For example, he said he did not see why some sensitive state institutions must have boards. Indeed, that is understood, or that can be understood to be coming from his own issues with his board chair, Professor Dua Ajimu, who incidentally is secretary to a cabinet subcommittee which authored that forensic audit report to be looking at. He also says that per activities in the office of the special prosecutor, he doesn't think the special prosecutor will be effective because he does not have the facilities or the enablement to be an effective prosecutor. We will look at these matters together with your comments. It's an interactive show, so I invite you to join the conversation with your comments on WhatsApp at 0549-986-996, and on social media, the hashtag is a big issue. I'll return, do some updates, introduce my guest, and then we'll delve into the discussion. Don't go away. This is the big issue. You're welcome back to the big issue. My name is Selon Adonu. Now, some updates. The Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBBA, has raised suspicion over tax waivers granted to Chinese pay TV StarTimes by government. According to the association, StarTimes promised to offer 300 communities with satellite television, for which it was granted a waiver, is baseless. The executive director of GIBBA, Gloria Haji, spoke on our major news bulletin, the City Newsroom, in the course of the week.
We have information, concrete information, to indicate that somewhere, I think either on the 25th or 27th of July this month, Parliament passed a resolution to waive taxes for StarTimes to bring in equipment and machinery.
All in relation to this digital migration business?
Yes, because they said they were going to offer some communities, a number of communities, 300 communities, access to satellite television.
Okay.
You cannot confine satellite feed to a locality.
Okay.
Currently it is available everywhere.
Okay.
Television operators are providing access
to satellites.
Yes, to communities, to wherever it is. They were not granted any tax waivers. So why are they now granting StarTimes tax waivers to bring in equipment and machinery? What kinds of equipment and machinery are they bringing in the first place? Okay? And if they could grant those tax waivers, then why not the local television operators, so that they would also be able to develop themselves?
So you heard Executive Secretary of GIBBA, Gloria Hiadzi, I beg your pardon. The Member of Parliament for Nigo Pram, Samuel Nate George, has insisted that the Ministry of Communication has not been transparent to Ghanaians with StarTimes, though the government through the Ministry of Communications has denied engaging in any contractual agreement with StarTimes. Samuel George alleged that there is documentary proof to the contrary. Speaking on CTTV's Current Affairs program, The Point of View, the Nigo Pram legislator described the deal as bad.
In 2017, first quarter 2017, the ICC gave a written judgment to the new Attorney General, Madam Gloria Akufo. And I'm putting on record that the decision by the ministry to abrogate the arbitration process, which Ghana was coasting to victory, because clearly the two bases on which the StarTimes went to arbitration had been struck out, and StarTimes was struggling to show any proof. The ministry, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, goes and comes out of the arbitration, and says they want to settle. Reason being, you have around that time, the Vice President had gone to China for the 19 billion facility. Part of the condition precedent on that was to get that case out of arbitration and settle the matter with StarTimes. So then you now have a decision by the Ministry of Communication to pull out a case Ghana was winning, where Ghana would not have spent a dime, and then go into and sign an MOU with StarTimes, that StarTimes should come and assist the ministry to do an audit of the KNet platform. And when they do the audit, the findings of that audit will now enable StarTimes get a new contract.
So that was Nigo Pram MP Samuel Nate George. Meanwhile, a Deputy Minister for Communications, George Anda, says that no agreement has yet been reached between government and StarTimes.
I have told you over and over again that StarTimes enhancing the network is based on us having funding from the Exim facility. Okay? You're saying clearly that the legal and commercial issues remained unsolved. So there were issues that had to be resolved. There is no agreement. We are not there yet.
What about the information in the first letter he read, that the Attorney General had been written to by the Communications Ministry stating that there was a contract?
Listen, if there's a documentation between the MOC and StarTimes, for that document or contract to become binding, it means that StarTimes are getting the funding from the Exim Bank facility.
All right, so you heard the Deputy Minister for Communications, George Anda. Now to the next issue. Many more fuel stations in Accra have now increased their fuel prices to 5 cedis 12 pesos for a litre of petrol or diesel. Checks by City News at some major oil marketing companies across the country reveal that the prices have gone up between 2 and 3%. Already, some consumers are complaining of the hike in prices. Niyamama, our reporter, visited some fuel pumps and has filed this report.
Just last night, the figures on these boards were far lower than they are today. They read 4 Ghana cedis 94 pesos and 4 Ghana cedis 90 pesos per litre of diesel and petrol, respectively. At the time, only Shell had increased its prices. But today, almost all the major fuel stations have also adjusted their prices upwards. Although consumers expected the hike as the second pricing window in September approached, they said the new prices had caught them by surprise. The consumers who visited these fuel stations spoke to City News.
It's quite difficult It's quite difficult, but I understand the situation, so I'll cope with it.
The individual is too much for us, so we plead the government to reduce it light for us, so that we are suffering. It will take almost 400 Ghana before the time will be filled.
But at first, how much will
it was 350. Yeah, so right now is too high for us, so we should reduce it for us.
Fuel price in the Kuya, I was buying of your not. They say Juma and no one the tofu. But 200 Ghana, my fellow metan. Say metal 200 and my fellow metan.
However, there are still some fuel stations that are yet to move with the trend. At these 4 pumps, prices remained well below the dreaded 5 Ghana cedis mark. Though the current price here is lower, this Okada operator cannot remain optimistic.
The fuel price is not good because nowadays the market itself is not good for us, and they've increased fuel. Yesterday the fuel was 4.900, and we should wake up today and see the fuel 5.120. It's not fair. They haven't increased, maybe because what they were selling now is the old fuel that they are using. But right now, let it finish and they should get a new fuel. By all means, they will increase. That's what people are buying. It will finish. But when they bring a new truck of fuel, they'll increase it by all means. They cannot stay and be selling whilst the rest have increased. At least they'll increase something on it.
All right, so you heard and saw that report filed by Niama Ama, our reporter, who visited a number of fuel pumps or filling stations with that report. So the minority in Parliament is demanding the scrapping of the special petroleum tax as a measure to cushion Ghanaians in the face of the fuel price hikes. According to the minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy, Adam Mutawakilu, the tax has outlived its usefulness at a time when the world market prices allow government to make a windfall of $10 million per day from crude exports.
Now, in 2018 budget, this government presented to Parliament with a benchmark price of $57 per barrel. Benchmark price means the price at which we will sell our oil. But as we speak now, the price per barrel is $77 per barrel. That means government is making surplus of $20 per barrel. And currently we produce up almost 200,000 barrels. So if you multiply this $20 per barrel excess times 200,000, you are talking about $10 million excess every day. That means every day government is making surplus of $10 million. By this, the special petroleum tax have nowhere to fill in the gap in respect to the oil price. And that is why we are calling on President Nana Akufo-Addo to, as a matter of urgency, scrap the special petroleum tax.
To drive home their demands, the minority says they will embark on a nationwide outreach from the 15th of October to explain their position clearly to Ghanaians.
We in the minority, by 15th October, will be going on an outreach program to the various regions to meet various stakeholders to prove to them the reason why we are calling on the special petroleum tax to be taken off.
On the matter of the alleged transfer of some 40 million cedis from Bost to the Chief of Staff in the Mahama era, Adam Mutawakilu called on Yoko to fast-track investigations.
Nobody is preventing Yoko from carrying out its investigative duties. If you can tell me that since Yoko started investigating, if any member from NDC had made any allegation of them not doing the right thing, no. So the best authority has been given the mandate to investigate, and therefore it should allow them to do their investigation. If they feel that there is the need for forensic, they will engage those people to do the proper thing for them to come out. And they have the...
All right, so you heard Adam Mutawakilu, who is the minority spokesperson on energy and mines. The Minister for Energy, John Peter Amewu, has stated that the numerous tax reductions announced by the Akufo-Addo government since it assumed office in 2017 is cushioning Ghanaians against the fuel price hikes. According to him, Ghanaians would have been paying about 8% more for fuel if government had not reduced or scrapped some taxes in 2017 and 2018. Here, there is more in this report.
His Excellency under the current government, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, have reduced the petroleum special tax levy from 17.5% to 15% on the 16th of March 2017. Has His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo been able to reduce the special petroleum tax rate further from 15% downwards? Yes, again, he did that and been able to reduce it from 15% to 13%.
Meanwhile, a Deputy Minister of Energy, Mohammed Amin Adam, maintained that prices of fuel at the pump would have been higher than what is being experienced if the Nana Addo government had not scrapped some of the taxes on petroleum products.
We may have to meet some of our development needs through revenue generated from taxes. Government will do that, but government will do it responsibly. This is why, since the previous government imposed the SPT, ours, upon assuming office, has been to reduce the SPT. And this is why I'm saying that we can also generate revenue through taxes, but we are doing it responsibly. We are doing it in a way which does not put too much burden on the Ghanaian. And so, as the Honourable Minister said, we have reduced the total tax component in the petroleum product prices from 40% in March 2017 to date 26%. That is how a responsible government can generate revenue through taxes on petroleum product prices without injuring the Ghanaian.
All right, so you heard that report by Anita Atta, and the Honorable Mohammed Amin Anta ended it there. This is the big issue. We are live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Lupin at Dabraka in Accra. We are on City TV and on 97.3 City FM. My guests this morning are Alhassan Suhuyini, MP for Tamale North, Franklin Cudjoe, President of Imani Africa, Sydney Casely-Hayford, member of Occupy Ghana and is a financial analyst, Prince Harry Crystal is an executive council member for GIBBA. We will return and then begin the discussions. Don't go away.
Hello and welcome to another day, another week, and of course another episode of 30 Minutes. We're excited and we will be talking about all the trending conversations.
Spend 30 minutes every weekday catching up with all the trending social media conversations of the day. If you tweet it, we'll read it. We might just even Skype you.
Shatta, why are you being so raw and hard like that? But at the particular time, that's what I wanted to do it. But that doesn't mean you are my enemy. We can still meet again and Shatta, this time we are about to do, don't come and do that nonsense. Okay, please, I won't do it. And we'll give respect to each other. But sometimes I feel, when we are all humans. When somebody says something about me, Shatta, hey, no, I might want to say something. Yeah. So, but when I say it, people shouldn't take it like taking things, personal and stuff. I've understood showbiz now, and I really want to work on it.
30 minutes is all it takes, so use the hashtag 30minutes on social media to catch our attention. Join the most interactive social media TV show weekdays at 5 p.m. only on City TV.
Welcome back to the big issue. My name is Selom Adonu. Once again, my guests for this morning are Alhassan Suhuyini, MP for Tamale North, Franklin Cudjoe, President of Imani Africa, Sydney Casely-Hayford, member of Occupy Ghana, and Prince Harry Crystal, Executive Council member of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBBA. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, so Prince, we're starting off with the GIBBA issue. Prince, your association is been very outspoken this week. I don't know where you guys have been all along, but this week you've been very vocal. There was a 6-page advertorial in the daily graphic where you outlined a number of things. But can you take us through where we have come from? Indeed, we know that somewhere around 2015, the migration from analog to digital should have happened. To date, we don't have that. Take us through what, where we've come from to where we are presently. Then we'll look at the concerns you have then.
Okay. Good morning to you, and good morning to my brother Suhuyini, and also to the viewers. Digital migration is a concept in technology, moving forward from the analog transmission systems to digital transmission systems. This, under the International Telecommunications Union, was signed as an agreement with other EU members, other ITU members in 2006 for the purpose of migrating television broadcast systems from analog to digital. Now, it provides a lot of digital dividends and benefits to the end user or consumers, or let's say the viewers, in that in the analog transmission systems, you would have one frequency given to one television network. Whereas in digital, one frequency could give you in the DVB standard 1 for up to about 13 channels, 8 to 13 channels. And then in DVB standard 2, which is the second generation digital video broadcast, would give you more channels instead of using just one frequency for one channel. Now, when you also consider the benefits to the end users or viewers, they have good picture quality, they have good sound quality, they have other value-added services like EPG service, and many other benefits that inure to the benefit of the viewers. Now, one main thing that a layman would understand better is in the analog regime, you would have, for example, TV3 transmitting from, let's say, Ajangote, and let's say Kantanka TV transmitting from, let's say, Dansoman. So if your viewer wants to have good signal reception, you would have to point in a particular direction, because television signals work with line of sight. So you then are pointing your signal to, say, Ajangote, and then in the opposite direction, you'll be having snowy pictures or blurry pictures or ghost-like pictures. So, but in the digital domain, the essence of having a single monopoly, which has been created under the technical consultations with Ghana's National Digital Migration Technical Committee, is to have one house, or let's say one platform or one infrastructure, where all TV networks in the country would send their signals to that point. So this only means that this very house, every TV station is within the house. So if every viewer points from wheresoever you are, you should be able to get all channels equally without having these interferences and snowy pictures and all that. So this is one of the benefits that digital migration presents. And Ghana's DBMC, when it was instituted or commissioned to undertake activities technically to make recommendations to the government of Ghana for the migration from analog to digital, one of the things that they advised on was to use DTT, which is digital terrestrial television, as the primary mode of signal distribution and information conveyance to the public of the Republic of Ghana, owing to the fact that as a sovereign nation, it is important to guard this very important asset, which is broadcast media. And for the fact that it needs to be within the controls of the nation. There are examples I can give in circumstances where if you use DTH, which is direct to home, or what we call satellite transmissions, the satellites are not owned by the sovereign nations. They are owned by other entities who are service providers, like Eutelsat, Intelsat, Arabsat, SCS, and the likes. Now, there could be a fatality. Fatality meaning that you would have one satellite just out of nowhere getting lost. So information via video, audio, data, security informations, and all that, which are being hosted by this satellite, could just go off. When it goes off, it only means that all your television signals within the country will be off. So it was important that you have your own network within your own country where you can have control over. And that was the main recommendation for the DTT. Now, going forward, we are beginning to see drift in this roadmap. Why? Because the recent issues which gave rise to the outburst of GIBA was the fact that it was compounded with the StarTimes 300 villages, access to satellite for 300 villages project. This project has given, the Parliament of Ghana has adopted a resolution granting StarTimes tax waivers to bring in equipment and materials to support or complement the efforts of migrating Ghana from analog to digital. Now, the point is, if Ghana has chosen to use DTH or satellite only as a means of transporting the signals from the main head end to the various other head ends, which KNET has put together as 42 different sites, why then would you want to make satellite as a mainstream means of receiving information or educating the populace in Ghana? This is one of the questions we raise. The second question is, why then do you give tax waivers to StarTimes for this particular purpose? Whereas there are indigenes in this country who have run broadcast over the past 2 decades and have not received any such tax waivers. So we think it is unfair trade practice for the Ministry of Communications through the Ministry of Finance and all that to send this resolution to Parliament for adoption. Then there are also other issues which we have with the MOC, spanning a period of 7 months. Since the MOC, the new administration took office, we've had only one stakeholder engagement. This stakeholder engagement was held in February, I think precisely on the 12th of February. Now, since the 12th of February, there are a lot of issues that had been on the table for discussion. And these issues have never been responded to by the Ministry of Communications, spanning a whole 7 months. So obviously, questions that remain unanswered borders on the investments of every broadcaster, especially in the TV industry. So we asked many questions. The DTT draft policy, which was put together in 2016, came back for review or stakeholder consultations again in February of this year. Many issues within it did not sit well with GIBA. So we raised a lot of questions. We made a lot of input. We have not received information regarding the inputs that were made. We've not received information regarding DSO, that's digital switch on, because there's supposed to be a timeline where all TV networks are now assumed to be fully digitized. Whereas we can then say the analog switch off period could be so and so time. This has been shifted more than 3 times, and we've been told that in October of this year, there's a likelihood that we would do this DSO. We've also had and even seen StarTimes moving around all the DTT sites and doing whatsoever stock taking or inventory, and it raises eyebrows because StarTimes had been in the picture since 2012 when the then government gave them a contract to put together the infrastructure for the DTT platform. Now, this was abrogated for several reasons, one of which is non-performance, one of which is unresponsiveness to the tender which was put forth at the time. Now we see StarTimes coming back again into the picture, and StarTimes moving around each DTT site taking stocks. What are they doing at the DTT site? So we wrote a letter again to the MOC asking questions. These letters were not answered to. So not until, I think, 5th of September this year, we then receive an acknowledgement letter to all the input we have made since February of this year. These to us, we think it's not proper. It's not a proper way of engaging a major stakeholder who has primarily been a part of the design of the architecture of even the infrastructure that we are put together now. This was done by KNET and excellently done by KNET. So what are we doing as a nation engaging StarTimes for the provision of what we now call expansion of the DTT infrastructure. The DTT infrastructure, in our opinion, does not require expansion at the moment. They changed the word expansion to enhancement. And one of the components of enhancement has to do with providing conditional access systems or modules within the head-end infrastructure. I may be speaking technical, but conditional access simply grants or denies permit for a viewer to access a specific program information or a specific program content. So then we ask questions again. This is an infrastructure that has been built to be a single monopoly for the free-to-air broadcast space in Ghana. Why then a model which is primarily dependent on advertising revenue would now have a conditional access, whereas a viewer where you are communicating to can only have access to your content if they have been granted such access?
It could be through payments.
It could be through payments. And even if it is not through payments, once it is passing through the conditional access, it is no longer called free to air. It is then called free to view. Why is it called free to view? Because you are watching per a condition which could only be, let's say, the access device. So this means that the decoder or set-top box you are using to watch the TV program is a specific set-top box, because you cannot have one conditional access license in several boxes, because it has to be paired with a particular box. That is why if you pick DSTV, you can only watch DSTV contents on DSTV boxes. And even if you will watch any other content on GoTV, it is through the same recommendations that were made by the DBMC that for us to enable access to free universal access to television contents or programs, every decoder that has gone through the minimum specifications put forth by the NCA should be able to access these TV contents anyhow with any box. So if you pick a strong digital box, if you pick a multi-TV box, if you pick a Mega Choice digital box, all these boxes, if you switch through, you should have GTV to watch, you should have TV3 to watch, you should have CTTV to watch. If you do not use these boxes and you are using an IDTV, you should have access to all these channels free without any encumbrances. So why are we bringing in a conditional access as a component of the enhancement? These are questions we ask. We cannot discuss the draft policy on this program, but obviously there are a lot of issues that bother us.
And the questions on the conditional access haven't been answered.
No. One of the things we hear is they are changing the word TV license to digital access fees. So this simply means that with the use of the conditional access, you would then have to pay your TV license fee to have access. If you don't pay, you are denied access. And we are saying that according to the Constitution of Ghana, the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, under Article 12, it says that there shall be no impediments in the establishment and operations of any mass media communication in this country. So how then do you now put a conditional access in the way of a free television broadcast service? This is also the reason why NCA, with their expertise, have designed types of authorizations. So if you want to run a pay service which is having to use a conditional access, then you go for a pay television authorization. If you want a free TV, free-to-air TV authorization, you go for it. If you want IPTV, Internet Protocol Television, you go for it. So there are various models and types of authorizations that are given. And then we have players in the industries who have chosen the various types of authorizations to deliver their programs to the populace. So many issues are there to be discussed. And this is the reason why the outburst from GIBA.
I think the constitutional provision you're trying to refer to should be 162.
162, yes.
So the ministry has responded, stating that your concerns that the ministry was seeking to hand over the platform to StarTimes was unfounded, because that was not the purpose of their engagement with StarTimes. You know, StarTimes really was to supply and install the equipment for the platform. And I've not heard you guys address or respond to that. And
yes,
does that satisfy you?
A response to that will come, because we are surprised at the decoupling of the StarTimes 300 Villages project from the control and management of the infrastructure. Now, they say that these two activities are distinct and separated. But we say there is a linkage. The linkage is the fact that there are components within the enhancement which they are engaging StarTimes to deploy. Now, StarTimes coming into the picture is because the government is intending to access the Exim Bank loan facility. And this is just the reason why StarTimes is back in the picture. Otherwise, if we have to go through an enhancement of the infrastructure, why won't you even put it back on tender? So we can see which entities will come forth and say, all right, we have the capacity to enhance the infrastructure. And even when we talk about enhancement of the infrastructure, currently there are several technologies that you can use to get more channels on your head end, which doesn't require the $95 million we are hearing, you see. So the issues are not separate.
Yeah, but
there is a linkage.
Speaking about StarTimes managing the platform and the counter arguments from the ministry, you know about the Central Digital Transmission Company Limited?
I can tell you for a fact that there has been discussions regarding the putting together an entity to manage the platform. It is part of the DTT draft policy. But as to the choice of name, this is something we are just hearing because as stakeholders, all this should be discussed. But we are just hearing it's even been registered.
But it's in a draft policy, and the draft policy is what you guys have worked on together.
That's right.
And the ministry is stating that the Central Digital Transmission Company Limited is an entity to manage the platform. Therefore, your concern about StarTimes, being brought in to manage a platform is unfounded because clearly there's a company which has been registered for that purpose.
Fine. This issue we are hearing about a company being registered, like I said, it's been discussed that there must be an entity registered to do this, whether it's be a public-private partnership arrangement or putting together a board to run the management of whichsoever company is formed.
And GIBA is represented or will be represented on this
GIBA will be represented on this entity. And even in that regard, we had issues with the appointing authority because it is said in the draft that the appointment of the board will be by the president.
But appointment of the board really is, mainly institutional. So, for example, GIBA, if whoever, maybe president or somebody says, okay, GIBA, give us somebody, the president will not appoint anybody in place of GIBA. If there's supposed to be the NMC represented, NMC will have to appoint their person. And other institutions like that. If creative industry is to be expected, is to be represented at the board, the creative industry will appoint somebody they deem fit to serve on the board, to be on the board. The ministry is saying that your concerns really do not hold water.
See, there is a difference between management and control. And even before I explain the differences, the issue of the representation on the board, we have this new entity under what we call a state-owned enterprise, right? Or a state-owned company. Now, every state-owned company regarding media is being overseen by the NMC. And the NMC has an equitable representation of all stakeholders, including the Parliament of Ghana, including the presidency, including the Children and Social Protection, media fraternity, and all that. So we think that having the NMC be the authority to appoint heads to head the board of this new entity will be in a right direction than having to have the president appoint the people, because at the end of the day there will be allegiance towards the presidency. If you currently listen to what Honorable George Anda has been putting forth, that we have a 7-member board. If you look at the formation of the 7-member board, you already have 4 out of the 7 skewed towards the appointment from government.
The 4 are from where?
Representation from the Ministry of Communication, representation from the Ministry of Finance, representation from, I think, the NMC. I can't get all from my mind.
Representation from the Communications Ministry. That is okay because it's It's a sector issue. So certainly you need a representation from the MOC or maybe NCA. Finance Ministry, there are money issues involved. So the Finance Ministry is represented on the board. I don't think that should be a problem.
That is not a problem. Beyond, if we even go deeper, you would see some other issues, but this will be discussed at the draft policy. But the control area I talk about, you see, when you have a component in an infrastructure that has to do with conditional access systems. Conditional access systems are licenses that are owned by an entity. Now, if StarTimes is being brought in to provide conditional access system in this infrastructure, it only meant that they own the license to the CA model. Now, owning license to the CA model puts you in control of the platform. This is where we have an issue with. Are you with me?
I'm with you, yeah.
Yes, this is where we have an issue with. Because the CA model, in any case at all, even if it is given to the new entity that is being formed or has been formed, will make a better sense than to say StarTimes provides the CA. Then the second issue is the choice of the CA. We have a myriad of conditional access providers across the world. And you cannot select a particular CA where you haven't had stakeholder consultation with all the stakeholders that are supposed to be a part of this project.
Very well.
So there are issues in there.
All right, I'll come back to you on the stakeholder engagement. Honorable Suhuyini, I mean, I know you've been following the discussion in the course of the week or throughout the week, and now he's here, and the secretary member of GIBBA speaking on the matter. You have been a practitioner. I mean, once a practitioner, always a practitioner. Sure. I mean, what are your initial or immediate comments on the happenings so far?
Well, let me also say good morning to my brother and good morning to our viewers. I think that over the week, following the presentations that have been made by GIBBA, one can only, as a patriotic citizen, side with them and also reiterate some of the concerns that they are raising, because there are really issues that we think that the government should be addressing as far as this digital terrestrial infrastructure and the migration to digital is concerned. You see, sometimes in this country, I am of the view that it is easy for us to say that the more things change, the more they remain the same. But then when you pay close attention to the issues, you will come to a conclusion I have come to, that indeed it seems our problems remain the same. But the approach to dealing with the problems are not really the same. But if you are not someone who is very detailed and pay close attention, because the same issues are discussed over and over again, there is that temptation to conclude that, things are just the same. Because we are talking about StarTimes here, and we have spoken about StarTimes before. And at that point, GIBBA again, was as vociferous as they are today. And the approach by, government at the time was different. And that is why perhaps we have the situation where you have a local agent, that's KNET, doing a chunk of the work as we speak. Now, what were the issues? Ghana signed onto an international agreement, and as leaders in Africa, we decided that we needed to take steps to ensure that the migration was possible and that we should even be those leading it. So on the basis of that, government was looking for money to make the infrastructure available to enable the migration. But you recall that this decision was at a time that the country was struggling to find fiscal space. The economy was choked by the single spine salary structure. We had just come out of the we had started the implementation of the single spine policy. And so there was no fiscal space, and government complained about how single spine was taking all the revenue available. So even though government was determined to put together the infrastructure that will enable the migration, government didn't have the resources to do it. And that is when StarTimes got into the picture with an offer of a facility from the China Exim Bank. And government thought that was a good arrangement. And so they were awarded a contract in 2012 to execute the project in 2 years. Fast forward, 2013, 2014, StarTimes was unable to carry out the project. Now, there were many other issues that, the government didn't find, acceptable with how StarTimes was proceeding. And government was ridiculed and condemned, rightly so, for not being able to execute that contract, even though they had spoken repeatedly about how they were determined to do it. And so government needed to take a different step to ensure that the infrastructure was put in place. And since StarTimes was not forthcoming, and maybe the management of the economy had led to some space being created, government then decided that looking forward, we were going to be able to fund it ourselves, and we may not need that Exim facility again. And so the contract between the government of Ghana, the Minister of Communications for that matter, and StarTimes was cancelled. And an international tender...
Also because StarTimes wasn't delivering.
They weren't delivering. That's the point I've made. They were not able to deliver. And government too had, some time limits to meet and had created some fiscal space moving forward that they thought they could fund. So they decided to open an international, tender process. About 10 companies, including international companies, put in the bid. And KNET eventually, which is a local, company, won the bid. And KNET won the bid because of the technical proposal that they put up. And they also had the record, behind them, because we all are very familiar in this country with multi-TV. And KNET is the company that built that infrastructure. So they had that experience of doing something similar. And so it was quite easy for them to beat the competition from other companies. So they got the job. And they have not really rested on their arse after getting the job. And it is refreshing to hear members of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association attest to the quality of work that KNET has done. So anyone who had doubts about the competence and the ability of KNET to have won that process is left in no doubt now, especially listening to professionals in the industry who you may even consider in some cases rivals to KNET, attesting to the quality of work that has been done so far. So clearly it tells you that we have the resource here. And if we commit ourselves as Ghanaians to empower each other and to do things that will eventually lead to our own benefit, we can do it. So KNET put up the infrastructure. Now we are, and that is what I understand CTTV is on. And they have currently about 40 channels. And I think the remarkable thing that KNET also brought in the whole execution was was how government was even now going to fund the whole process using some of the spaces. I'm told, I'm not very technical with this thing, spaces that are generated in the process of building the infrastructure that can be used for 4G service. And so government had a number of these, licenses that they could give out. One of it was given to MTN.
But that process is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. Yes. But I'm saying that it has also become a revenue generation of a sort to government that can even be used to fund the process. So again, KNET have delivered 40 channels. We are told can currently be housed on that infrastructure. Then we start hearing about the resurrection of StarTimes. After the process, have come this far, we start hearing about that resurrection that I think is unholy and quite fishy.
But could the resurrection not have been because StarTimes got offended by the abrogation of the contract? They went to court, a local court threw it out, now went to the ICC, which is an international forum for arbitration. And so because that process had started, the StarTimes name came up again. And because of Ghana's engagement with China, possibly there was the talk about, bringing StarTimes back in, because we all know that the condition precedent for the $19 billion loan or so was to take that matter from arbitration so StarTimes could be settled. So it's like you want to do something, you don't have the funding, because 90 billion cedis could be used for a lot more other things. But in order for you to qualify for that, you need to treat our guys in your country doing business in a certain manner. So government then had no choice than to bring the matter out of arbitration and then settle it. So don't you think that accounted for the so-called resurrection of StarTimes again in this discussion?
Well, I can agree with you that it is a reason. But then again, politics, in my view, is about choices and the allocation of resources appropriately for the benefit of the people in a country. And so it becomes difficult to discuss some of these issues without a focus on the politics, because the people who play the politics end up making these choices of allocation of resources. So if, for example, you have a system in place that is looking at a 19 billion on behalf of the people of Ghana, and you have a Chinese government that is also looking at a contract for its company in our country, there will certainly be a conflict there. The conflict can be resolved based on, what is right. So StarTimes is doing business in Ghana. Do they have that? I mean, are they rightly entitled to what they are asking for? So if they are not entitled, should our country ignore the fact that they are not entitled because we are looking at a 19 billion? Will our government be serving our interests by closing an eye to what is wrong, simply because they are thinking if they get 19 billion, it's going to help us in the long run? And I'm saying StarTimes is not entitled because, indeed, when the contract was abrogated, StarTimes was unhappy. And so StarTimes went to the local courts. They went to the High Court. It was thrown out. They went as far as the Supreme Court. It was thrown out. They went for international arbitration. And even at the international arbitration, they were thrown out because the demands that they made could not be supported by the available evidence.
It was just on preliminary grounds because the substantive matter hadn't been heard.
Yes, but the fact of even on the preliminary grounds, the ruling was that StarTimes was entitled to whatever money they had expended on the execution,
which was part of the contract.
On the execution of the contract. Yeah. Now, government of Ghana together with StarTimes have been discussing, and StarTimes repeatedly have been asked to make claims and support those claims with evidence of money expended in the course of execution of the contract. StarTimes have not been able to do that over the period. In fact, I hear stories of how one time they said the equipments were brought into Ghana, they were moved into Nigeria, and the government have always said that, look, even if you brought equipment into Ghana, they can't just evaporate. You will have evidence of taxes you may have paid at the port, and some movement, transport, records should be there. So bring those records, prove that you have actually expended this much in the course of executing the contract before it was cancelled. They have not been able to.
So is it your case that StarTimes didn't actually expend it, didn't do anything?
If they did, they would have made appropriate claims by now when they were given the opportunity. So it is clear that they didn't. But you see, because of the appetite they see that our government has in the 19 billion, they are willing to twist our arm and say that give us what we are not due, so that we can give you what is not even an aid, but a loan facility that we will pay with interest, back. So I think that the resurrection of StarTimes is completely needless. And especially so when we have on our own developed the infrastructure to the point that, to this point, it is completely needless. And if you look at the excuses or the rebuttals that are coming from government, they are less than honest. They are less, they are simply not being honest.
How?
Look, you're talking about 3 ingredients here. You have the distribution of whatever to 300 villages. Then you have the setting up of a company to manage the DTT. Then you also have the infrastructure itself, the expansion or construction of the infrastructure. These are the 3 components on this matter. So the Ministry of Communication issues a statement and says that what they are discussing with StarTimes has to do with only the distribution of the 300 villages to benefit. That is dishonest.
But before that, you have one of those joints in your constituency, the 300.
The selection of the 300 is even an issue as members of parliament, and as Ghanaians, we should all be worried about. What was the basis used in selecting the 300 to benefit, especially when we have local companies like we are, like we are being told here. Local companies have been doing it already.
My constituency doesn't have any of those.
I don't think so, because I haven't seen any. And I'm saying,
and you've not been contacted as MP for the
at all. I haven't been, and that is why, again, you are asking the question: why should StarTimes get tax waivers for that exercise? Why, when local companies are already engaged in that? The what do you call it? Our own company, the state company, GIBBA, and others are already partnering and extending, some of these, things to underserved communities without those tax waivers. So why are we doing this for StarTimes? And how did we even arrive at the 300 villages? I'm happy my brother Franklin Cudjoe says it's Ludu. It's just like probability something.
Like casting lots.
Yeah, a casting lot. I think it is unacceptable. Then again, you talk about, I was talking about the 3 legs.
Yeah.
Now, if they say that their dealings with StarTimes have only had to do with these 300 villages, it is dishonest. Because indeed we have seen a letter that the minister herself has written to the Attorney General, in which she outlines the engagements with StarTimes and what those engagements entails. She talks, for example, about the expansion of the DTT infrastructure as one of the agreements that they have had.
But that is conditioned on the fact that they are able to get funding. So that agreement could be there according to government or according to Judge Anda at least. That agreement or whatever could have been signed. But if StarTimes is unable to access the funding from Exim Bank, then it's as good as nothing. So yes, they could have signed something, but that will not count if the money they are to access is not accessed. You get the point? So it's neither here nor there, according to government, that a contract has been signed already, because that contract could be moot if StarTimes is unable to draw or access the funding from Exim Bank.
But we are already hearing that there are letters written to that effect, that we cannot access the funds.
Yes, so it means that letter you said has been signed, is of no effect. Before I go to Franklin, let me quickly come back to you on this 300.
If you just allow me to, I'll share with you a portion of that letter.
Okay.
I think it is on the 2nd page, and it says based on the
AG MOC letter.
Yes, it says based on the MOU, the ministry undertook the following. Now it says 1, on 30th November 2017, the Ministry of Finance formally requested the Exim Bank of China to reactivate the signed framework agreement for the concessional loan. 2, on 8th March 2018, the ministry secured cabinet approval for the commencement of the DTT expansion project to be executed by StarTimes. Take note of the words. For commencement. Commencement. They got
and that was the date again for this?
8th March 2018. Commencement, they got that approval. It's not about a contract again. They have to start an expansion. Now, 3 says, on 16th March 2018, the ministry secured the EPA permit for the DTT expansion project. This permit is not for KNET. It's obviously for StarTimes. Then, on 29th March 2018, the ministry signed a settlement agreement with StarTimes to discontinue the arbitration process at the ICC. And finally, on the 5th April 2018, the ministry signed a contract with StarTimes to reinstate the original contract signed on 11th April 2012 with an amended scope. So, it is dishonest to say there is no contract. There is, in fact, a contract to reactivate the 2012 contract.
And the 2012 contract was to supply?
The 2012 contract was to construct the DTT infrastructure. So they are saying that they have reactivated with amended scope.
Okay. Which is the enhancement,
and expansion
they talk about
that
now.
They have talked about that it should be commence. I mean, it should commence as we speak because they have gotten the cabinet approval. So the ministry is not being honest, and that is even making matters worse. And you see, this is a ministry that is scandal prone, and you wonder why the president finds it difficult to intervene.
The Ministry of Communications is scandal
prone. I mean, if you look at the scandals that have come out of that ministry, it beats my imagination. That
Franklin is just sitting by you, and I'm smiling because Franklin is on a roll with that ministry on this KDGBG matter. I'll come back to you on that. I know you'll find
I will just land on that. I'm sorry. So I'm saying that it beats my imagination that the president, who we are told is a champion against corruption and all of that, is unable to intervene in some of the affairs that this ministry has engaged in over the period. In the case of StarTimes, I am beginning to suspect that perhaps he has compromised himself in a way.
Who, the president?
The president. And I say so because we have all, heard and read about the president's itinerary when he went to China recently. And in one of his engagements, he had a special meeting with the president of StarTimes. We have also seen, donations that StarTimes have made to their wife. So his lack of intervention may be linked to a possible compromise, unless he wants, so I will like to challenge that perhaps he should do something not just for his own image, but for the benefit of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, who have over the years toiled so hard to bring this process this far on behalf of the Ghanaian people.
But you see, the difficulty is that, it's like you have your hands in somebody's mouth. You can't, something must give. You get me? So if you want this amount of money from them, these are terms you should be ready to play by. Give the job or do it this way with our people. And these are the terms. If you want this amount of money, this is what we want you to do with our people. Speak to this man, meet with this man, and agree on ABC. You want the money for your project. You've promised a lot. You want to develop your country to a certain level. The people have expectations. You have to wait against a lot.
I will let you land. But you see, the point is that, like I started by saying that the more things change, the more they seem they remain the same. But they don't. We have had this same situation before, and a government chose to walk away. A government chose to walk away by cancelling the contract that they had with StarTimes and losing whatever facility. In fact, the 3 billion facility from China, the CDB loan, part of it did not come because of this, tango with StarTimes. But the government was determined to do the right thing, and so they walked away from that contract. And after walking away from that contract, we have gotten better, not worse, because a local company, KNET, has actually built that infrastructure in less than the number of years that StarTimes failed to do it.
Very, very well. All right, I want to come to you, but let me go to Franklin. Franklin, I mean, the Ministry of Communication is your darling. I mean, certainly you've been following this. What are your comments in respect of how the ministry is handling this StarTimes matter and the concerns raised by GIBA?
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, let me just say that the ministry indeed has become a darling. And I think that it is important that we engage much more, because it looks to me that the ministry seem not to know exactly what they're about. Probably if they know, they are just being quite arrogant with it as well. But we are ready to engage. Maybe during the week, we are likely to organize a forum.
That's Imani.
StarTimes.
Imani.
Yes, and then we hope that they'll show up. Actually, if we hope they show up. But even if they don't show up, we're having a conversation with Ghana and everybody that is subject to this rather wishy-washy policy-making environment that the ministry has superintended. Let's not lose focus on what is being discussed here at all. I mean, look, I do not begrudge China doing what it has to do. It is part of China's soft power approach to landing the, if you like, the hard stuff. I mean, since the 90s, they've had the strategy. In fact, in January of 2012, they had launched their first African media hub in China. Right, and this the wording, the intro that came with it was that, look, this was their launch into the African market, just to put it simply. And so it is a strategy that they themselves have adopted. What it is that we have to be doing is essentially understand that as part of their soft power skills, they just want to project their country.
Exactly.
What it means for you and I is to have people who are knowledgeable, not just about China, but actually the art of statecraft. To understand that this engagement must be based on equal terms. Because whatever it is, there's no free lunch. In fact, the Chinese Xinhua News Network actually leased a huge LED screen on Times Square to showcase its prowess. In fact, they advertised. And so this is not new. What is happening is that they are launching a very aggressive, plan to buy also our entertainment, our conscience, and all of that. I mean, the story has been relayed about, I think in 2015, someone said that, well, they think China's plan is also to show Chinese culture.
And the Kung Fu.
Which includes Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
To villages.
And Chinese telenovelas.
But in Kenya, they actually have a Swahili channel. So essentially, what they do is to tell the Kenyans about what happens in China. And there can be nothing wrong with it at all, except that when it has to do with contracting, that's where we always make a mistake, to think that this would be on the silver platter. If you listen to the Honorable Deputy Minister, Georganda, during the week on your network, it was as if they were handicapped. It's like we are going for an exim facility, so that's what it is, without having any intellectual depth as to what exactly you are giving away, especially when they are interested in building their own local content. But the President has been on record suggesting that even the talk about local content should be moved away from, should actually be Ghanaian content, which means that we must be able to build the capability of the Ghanaians to the extent that they do not only thrive in our market, but can also go outside. So if the President believes in this particular mantra, it's shocking that his own ministry, which has been supervising deals that seem not to be in tandem with his thinking, are actually giving Ghanaians a raw deal. So for me, this whole China discussion In fact, there's an extension of this bauxite deal as well. I'm sure the NDC obviously had their challenges. It's true that part of the reasons why some significant amount of the CDB loan did not come, apart from some of the projects that were not properly quantified, was actually the fact that the NDC decided that they were no longer going to go along with StarTimes' approach. And StarTimes took the matter to court, and there's been a settlement. In fact, people think that there hasn't been a settlement. There has been a settlement. A partial award was granted to the Ghanaian government that StarTimes can go to hell, and that the contract could actually be abrogated. So I do not know what the ministry is going on about that. Well, the matters are not conclusive. Yet again, it's either it's diabolics or just being plain ignorant about the issue, or just actually being arrogant about it as well. I'm mortified that the ministry that is supposed to be giving clarity and hope to the boundless opportunities within the tech space is actually interested in deregist regulation, is either doing some crazy deregulation or is engaging in some shady arrangements. And I don't know why the president is still interested in keeping the persons who handle this ministry at post. I don't understand it.
No, but the president obviously sees a bigger picture.
What picture?
So, for example, he wants to access a certain amount of money for his projects. And if this is tied to StarTimes, for example, executing or doing a certain project in Ghana, and he doesn't think it's a big deal or the gains outweigh this particular one, why not? You go with it.
Listen, the current Malaysian Prime Minister, right, came back to power, and he was telling a journalist recently who had asked the question, what is your beef with China? He said, I don't have any problem with China, to the extent that they are giving big sums of money to people and cities and then virtually taking over every aspect of their country. It's his worry, and that he doesn't believe that should be done. While saying that, he did say though that he was interested in a Jack Ma relationship, because Jack Ma is interested in extending technology, right? So it's a win-win approach. Jack Ma is not coming to virtually railroad everything that you are doing as a country, but actually hope to build on. And that has been his hallmark anywhere he's had businesses. That type of arrangements the Malaysian leader is willing to have, which means the Malaysian leader has been properly briefed. Not because he's closer to China, but because
Malaysia doesn't have the same clout.
It's not about clout, Salom. It's about the fact that he's looking at value. It's not about clout. In any case, you must have... No. Listen. In any case, you must have a strategy. That's the whole point. I mean, your own network, City did the program not long ago. And almost everybody who spoke on that platform, even including the Minister of Information at the time, did concede that if the Chinese, it cannot be a happy-go-lucky person dealing with them. You must have a strategy. You can't say because you are getting $1 million or $1 billion, so all of a sudden, you should stop thinking. That's what Zambia did. And Zambia is paying dearly for it. That's what Sri Lanka did. And is paying dearly for it. There have even been concerns in Kenya about the sort of deals that we enter into with China. So yet again, I mean, let's not say that the Chinese are just interested in taking over. But they are taking over because they are willing participants in it as well. Yeah. You see, so for me, this whole DTT, this is another discussion. I knew when this matter came, I knew the ministry would be found wanting, and they would have no sensible explanation to give than to tell you that they are going to go ahead with it. Look, in 2012, I met a young lady, a Chinese lady called Yu Shangwu, who was working with the South African Institute of International Affairs. That think tank has a whole department that looks at they call it the China in Africa project. And this young lady is Chinese, but she's authored a paper, The Rise of China's State-Led Media Dynasty in Africa. This is 2012. And she drew a lot on the happenings in China and looked at the global scheme of things, and actually did this very convincing paper. She's Chinese. She understands the dynamics in China. And I'm thinking that after reading this, I probably should loan it to the Ministry of Communications to understand exactly what they are dealing with. That's one of the things we do in this part of our world. Lazy thinking, lazy, everything lazy. We just think things will come to us simply because we take photos with some prime ministers and all of that. So for me, this is one attempt again at a ministry that has lost its marbles, lost its way, and I don't know what next they are likely to cook.
Take for instance in Nigeria, you can't find digital TV accessible without having to go through the StarTimes box, because they have virtually taken over the Nigerian airwaves.
So that's what they are seeking
with a 70%
well.
shareholding in the infrastructure that has been built by the nation.
Wow.
So that's what we are looking at, and we don't want that to happen in Ghana. It can't happen. It mustn't happen. 300 access to satellite TV for 300 villages.
I thought the talk was that StarTimes hadn't built any of that infrastructure anywhere in the world. So if you are telling me that they've built a similar thing in Nigeria,
no,
then
it's always a takeover.
The government of Nigeria bought it, and now they own 70%.
Exactly.
Now that's interesting.
Yes.
So Sydney, I mean, the talk really appears to be that our government doesn't have a strategy going into these deals, and China with a strategy, a strategy to rise to the top using the low-key road appears to be having its way. So, for example, there was an arbitration. Ghana appeared to be cruising to victory.
There's been a victory. Stop saying cruising. There's an award. Please.
Let me just read that award.
No, you should read the award.
For the reasons set out above, the tribunal awards and declares as follows. Clause 41.11 of the GCC is not subject to an obligation not to exercise the right of termination irrationally, capriciously, or for an improper purpose. B. Clause 41.11 of the GCC provides the respondent with the absolute right to terminate the contract at any time and for any reason, subject to payment of any sums due under Clause 41.13. Clause 41.13 actually says that if the contract is terminated, the respondent, in this case Ghana, or the contracting party, will have to pay, what is due the other party, the injured party. And that the 41.11 says that the Ghana, for example, could terminate the contract at will. And that if you are terminating the contract at will, you have to do what 41.13 says. That is paying damages, if you like. And Ghana could terminate that. So I'm not sure if
but that's the point.
That is the point I was making about, government being asked to pay StarTimes what is due them. If they were able to prove that they had actually expended money in the execution of the contract, then they haven't been able to.
Okay. All right. So the bull float is here.
It's okay. We've said it.
So when Sydney sees the bull float, he puts a smile on his face, which is great. So it appears we don't have a strategy in dealing with this. Like the Nigerian experience, government builds infrastructure, StarTimes comes, takes about 70% of it, and now you can't actually go to the space without going through StarTimes. Is that what we're likely to see in Ghana, or is that where we are heading towards?
Okay. Good morning to all. The problem I'm having with all of this is I can't believe that there is no strategy for telecommunications delivery and for digital rollout in this country, because it's been on the cards for a long time. It's not like I said, we woke up last week and decided we are doing digital access. We even at some point set certain deadlines and we had to extend because people were not ready, and so we did. As I sit down today, there's a whole plethora of television stations that I can access through my GoTV digital box. I have close to 80-something channels to watch. I don't watch them because a lot of them, the content doesn't do anything for me. But it is available.
Well, wait for good food.
Okay, it's available.
I think the strategy is not in respect of,
what has happened already.
I mean, it's about dealing with this particular issue, the StarTimes China.
What is the issue? What is the issue? China says, I have a grant. I'm going to give you the grant. And that grant will enable you to roll out community television stations in 300 communities. All right? That's a grant. And the beef, as far as I hear, is that they are being given a tax waiver. But if I'm coming to give you something, if I come and I say, Salam, I want to give you a car so you can run around, then you say, oh, but if you give me a car, then please go and pay my insurance and pay my roadworthiness as well.
Just 1 second. The village project is different from the DTT.
Yes,
so
but let him just land here, let me see.
So I don't understand that beef that we seem to be having with the grant. As for the DTT expansion, to be honest with you, I don't understand the difference between the DTT and the what was the other one?
DTH.
Or
DTT is simply terrestrially received through your normal antennas. And then the DTH is received through a parabolic dish, like a satellite dish.
Like a satellite dish.
That's the main difference.
Okay.
Yes. And so one is controlled terrestrially, and that's why it's called DTT. And the other one is controlled through satellite. And the satellite space in orbit is not owned by Ghana. So there are other providers who send payloads to satellite.
Yes.
And then they provide a downlink, then around service for Earth.
Okay. And GIBBA's beef is that we shouldn't allow the Chinese to do the DTT.
There is a roadmap, which is more like the strategy used.
Oh, so there is a strategy.
There is a strategy.
Oh, I thought you said there was no strategy.
No, there is a strategy.
No, my strategy, the mention of strategy by me was not in respect of the DTT. It's about Ghana's dealings with powers like China.
Yeah, that's what
so you
meant.
go, whatever they tell you, irrespective of what the happenings in your country may be, you just agree because you need it.
But didn't Nana Akufo-Addo just recently, when he went to China, say he wanted to draw closer to China and understand the Chinese model and mirror the Chinese model and bring development to Ghana like China has got? Is that not a strategy?
That's a strategy. Well,
is it not a strategy?
So what
is it not a broad outline strategy?
If you're drawing closer to them and they give you terms which are inimical to your local situation, what do? Do you still go? Do you draw closer to them because you want to draw closer to them,
he says he wants to model Ghana more or less on what China has been able to achieve. He didn't say that he was going to go and borrow anything or take any money that China gives him. He says, I want to do the kind of things that you are doing, which for me meant that I want to grow my country in such a way that I also will become a major exporter of consumer goods. I will also become a major powerhouse as far as money and financing is concerned. Do you realize that $19 billion worth of development, it's about 4 times the GDP of Ghana? I mean, do you realize that?
4 times the GDP of Ghana?
Sure. Ghana's GDP is how much? $5 billion?
No, 41 or 47
41 billion. CDs or dollars?
Dollars.
No, dollars. Okay, so sorry, I got it wrong. So if it's $41 billion, all right, and somebody's coming to give you 19 billion, that's about 50%.
But it's not going to come GDP. At once. It will be spread.
It doesn't matter whether it comes at once or not. The fact of the matter is the value of what they're going to put in is about half your GDP. Where are you going to find the money to do that job if you don't accept? In this case, it's not it's not a loan; it's a grant.
Yeah, but this is a grant that has been given for 300 villages. And you've given them tax waivers to bring in equipment. These equipment are set-top boxes.
Yeah.
Now, these decoders that you are bringing to deliver to the people, you are delivering to about 6,000 homes and about 900 other public centers. Now, why we say there is a strategy to take over the DTT market is for the fact that we heard from Honorable George Anda that after a period of 6 months of free viewing, there is going to be a subscription paid. So why do you give tax waivers to somebody's private entity? You see, in the time of 2012 contract that was given to StarTimes at the time, they were not players on the market. Right now, they are riding on the back of Mobile Zone's license to operate as a pay TV satellite company in Ghana. They are already rolling out a scheme for free decoder. We all hear it in all the adverts. Free decoder, free decoder. Pick up the decoder and you watch for 6 months, and thereafter you pay your subscriptions. It is the same model that is being replicated for the same 300 villages project. And we are saying that...
So it's your penetration strategy
government
that is supporting?
You are supporting penetration strategy for...
Against your own...
Against your own indigenous. Because we have been on the market
companies
for way 25 years. And none of the players on the market, Kwese TV, Go TV, First Digital, Mega Choice Digital, or Multi TV, none of them has ever enjoyed any tax waiver. Because when you are bringing in these decoders, you will pay through your teeth.
But the other argument is that these people might not have asked government for the things that StarTimes are. So you didn't ask for any tax waiver, but StarTimes did. So StarTimes did.
But that's a local content strategy. Why do governments exist? Why do government exist?
Okay.
I mean, government exists to make life better for its citizens. So if you have the opportunity or the ability, in this case, to grant tax waivers, and you find your local players in that same industry, why do you even wait for them to ask before you extend it to them?
Need the help.
So that's what I'm saying. Why do government exist? You know they do. So you know that this is going to give StarTimes an advantage, and yet you are giving it out.
So you local players.
If I could just make a point on what I understand Sydney to be saying. It's as if, okay, they are giving us a grant of say 19 billion. So it's okay if we also give them a grant of our digital space. Because it's as if, that's why it is important to understand the two different issues. So they are getting a tax waiver. They are getting a tax waiver. That is if we even accept that they are giving us a grant of, distributing Digi boxes to about 6,000 homes. If we accept that it is actually just out of their own benevolence that they are doing this for us, without the other issues that we have already raised. If we agree that it's just out of their own, the goodness of their hearts, they are giving us that. So in order to make it easy for them, like the insurance example he gave, we should also, grant them those tax waivers. Okay. But the second deal is the terrestrial space, which in this case, it is clear they don't deserve. We don't have to give them.
And they are a player in the industry,
yes,
and they're building this as
yes,
well.
But so because they do these 6,000 villages, we should, walk on the path that is risky. That will lead to a situation where they will control television content and viewing in this country, because it has happened in Zambia, it is happening in Nigeria.
In Nigeria.
I mean,
in
I
many
don't
countries.
get that.
So
they give with the left and then they take with both hands.
So let me ask you. I have a decoder in my home, Go TV. I have a choice of stations. I also have an antenna where I can access other programs free to air, particularly GTV.
And GTV is on Go TV, is it not?
And GBC 24. You can get it on both.
Okay.
I can get it without
without the specified box.
So I have that. I also have, and I see a lot of Indian and Spanish soaps, Z Bollywood or Z World or and B4U TV and all that kind of stuff. Who says I have to watch them?
It's a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my choice.
But those
so if you come and give me Chinese movies and a Chinese channel, and I don't want to watch it, I don't switch to that channel.
They say stop aiding them.
I don't watch it. I have a particular favorite channel that I watch every night or every weekend if I can. It's called Akwafu TV. I don't know whether anybody else has ever watched it. But it's a fantastic program.
So the danger with Akwafu TV is that when the StarTimes begin to control that space and is competing with Akwafu TV on that space, they can find a way of making sure that the Akwafu TV becomes extinct, because they will impose charges in such a way that Akwafu TV can no longer, give you that your favorite program. And that is the danger moving forward.
Yes.
Because you see, they control that space. They control that. When they begin to control that space, they will determine charges that even stations will pay.
Actually,
to
what
be
you
on
are
that
saying is that
space.
they would have
and if they have a program, if I would just, maybe Independence Day. Akwafu TV wants to show you Independence celebration. They also have an important program that they are doing in China. They have the ability to interrupt the Akwafu TV and show, and you will have no choice because you want your TV to be on, and you will watch that program.
Now we are getting basic. Actually, that's being very basic. That's very.
It has to be. So what is because of this?
What is the point of?
Actually, the point is this.
And the media formation.
Actually, the point is about the ability to build content. Once you have given the ability to come in with all these nice waivers, it strengthens you to build content at such margins that the local competition cannot. That is one of the arguments I think GIBA and the rest are actually advancing. That look, already we are struggling to get a lot of content. So if I would have thought maybe the strategy would have been, okay, the Chinese want to come into this market. Maybe the president through the ministry sits with these Chinese people and say, look, these are topmost local competitors. These are going to be your top local competitors. Or deliberately actually engineer a situation where those on the lower end of the market could be paired with these Chinese people. And then they can develop content together as a strategy to ensure that that part of the Ghanaian pie is actually felt. You see, if they did that type of arrangement, knowing obviously how we are dealing with the Chinese in the galamsey, what's it called, in the mining sector, what would have happened would have been the case that the conversation would have moved on to, okay, how much of the share can we, how much of the pie can we actually have? But here it is, the guys are actually they've done a lot. I mean, if you take multi-TV for instance, they've done so well. They are even in Sierra Leone. Their channels can be seen in Sierra Leone and the rest. And they've actually labored. Now it's as if they are almost at the zenith, where they are likely to cream off, even if real challenges. Look, some of these media houses are running on a whole lot of debt. If you get close, I'm sure you know this. And so they think that now that the bigger player is coming to the market, the strategy should be, how can we be supported and helped? Rather than
let me give you.
Why should they be supported and helped? They are making money.
My listeners and viewers too are commenting. So let me take a few comments from this.
Did I arrive at the end of my
my
questions?
Let's finish
your questions.
No, because I'm trying to understand from GIBA in particular, all right, and from the opposition. This is the opposition to anything good in Ghana.
Oh, really? Coming from you, that's very instructive.
Just a few minutes ago, you are saying that Ronaldo is compromised because his wife went and was given a grant in China.
That's very instructive.
Let me take a few.
Which is very underhand.
Like you. That's very underhand.
That may be far-fetched.
Please ask Suhuyini
what may be far-fetched.
Your microphones are off, guys. Please ask Suhuyini if the Bahama-led government or NDC did not have a thorough rationalization of the StarTimes deal before contracting. They brought it on. Franklin, please analyze this issue from its inception. Was it necessary at all? Where was GIBA et al.? And this is from Frances Essiem, CEO of the Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company. Other messages say, good morning, Salom. In the name of cleaning the system, it appears this government is repeating the mistakes of the NDC, the mistakes the NDC did, for which we voted them out of power. Do our local industries and companies need to suffer at the expense of foreigners, especially the Chinese? See the way the China government is pushing to have their companies penetrate our Ghanaian market while we are busily collapsing ours. I'm just wondering which one is better, NDC or MPP. They should remember they are to represent Ghanaians and not themselves. This is Ima from Malam. Awudie Bernard from Adina says the communications minister should listen to the concerns of the citizens. I'm convinced by Franklin's submission because he has been proven right over the years. In fact, his submissions are as powerful as a stone that David used to stone Goliath. Kudos to you and your guest and my customer friend. You say, thank God Sydney is finally here. I was getting bored. The big issue. Sydney, your fans have started talking. For all this time we were brooding over DTT. Where were GIBA and what did they do? This is Kwame from Teshi. This one from Kansuk says that tell Casely that if he has no knowledge of the DTT issue, as he has admitted, he should stop giving irrelevant scenarios. Sydney has a way he does it. He tries to dig the issues up and then he makes his point. So no, people are praising you. You want to?
Oh no.
I was just trying to answer the question.
I just thought I should say something.
Because they are praising you.
No, no. Actually, Suhuyini is a politician, and I know in this space, politicians say anything they want to say. I think when he made the point about the president's wife being granted, I think a Jesse and some grants, and so he believes that by that
the president might have compromised or might have been compromised.
Actually, the ministry in this case might have been compromised. You see, in doing this type of analysis, you also have to do vested interest analysis as well. I think, clearly speaking, in the more far-seeing world, if you give somebody a bottle of wine and then along the line you come and say you want to enter the market, people will go back and trace. People lost jobs because they collected a bottle of wine in a company. So I think that these matters also have to be seen in those lights. It may not necessarily suggest that there's some culpability. So it could be a
point.
It could be a strategy.
By drawing those linkages.
Yeah, he has a point to the extent that it is seen in the analysis of not just vested interest, especially from the side of the Chinese. From the side of the Chinese.
Yes.
But then we can do those type of extrapolations. That, okay, is that why they did A, B, C, D? Because
so it's permitted to do so.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that Trump goes to how do you call it? Probably is cancelling a particular deal in his Oval Office, and it turns out that apparently he had dealings with a rival company somewhere in North Korea.
Don't even go far, frankly. Don't go far. You see, maybe it's important that because he has brought it, so I just recall what I said. I was talking about the ministry being scandal prone and the seemingly inaction from the presidency as far as some of the issues that have come out of that ministry is concerned. And I challenged, I didn't make an accusation, I challenged that in the case of StarTimes, the president's inability to intervene and resolve the matter may be because of something that I see that looks like a compromise. And so I challenge the president to intervene, to assure all of us that the meeting with StarTimes president and the sponsorship of his wife's foundation will not influence his decision as far as this matter is concerned.
That is a very, very mischievous statement to make, and you know that. You were being mischievous by implying. You can condemn the fact that maybe a gift has been made to the president's wife's foundation, and say if it has not been declared according to the law of the country, then it is wrong. All right? If it was something that you had found out because it was some clandestine thing that had happened, then fine. But this was an open public donation.
Without digressing,
let's not worry about that.
If you have an entity
it's politics.
If you are an entity donating,
it's politics, and they blame your politics.
If you are an entity donating to another, and later on, or that entity, you are in some arrangement with that entity, you don't think there's a likelihood that your decisions may be affected by that?
Why? I see. There are certain things that you have to be careful about. Why would you compromise a whole national digital situation and a whole relationship with a foreign country because somebody has donated $20,000.
But see, that's assuming that we understand what we're actually dealing with. Actually, let's end this. No, but hold on. Let's end this point. I would think that Suhuyini wants to ask the president to intervene. At the point that the president has not intervened yet,
intervene in what?
We may not be able to. We will not be on solid ground drawing those conclusions. But what I know is that even if the president is actually briefed, and he'll be badly briefed by the ministers, because clearly speaking, they've never briefed him properly on anything.
Anyway,
then that's the point.
Right. So yes,
I think Kanazui happened, and the president was given
and they said
the road was nice.
And that was coming from Sydney. It's very instructive.
Yeah, but there was also a machine gun. There was also a machine gun installed on the car. So why shouldn't we comment about it? Who is he going to gun down?
No, Cindy, just make a point. You had a floor before, yes.
Let me address a couple of things. You see, we argue one thing when it's convenient for us, and we say the opposite at a different time. We are saying institutions must work, and we have to allow these institutions to carry their weight in order for them to be able to execute. You have a minister, and she's executing a program, which is a cabinet decision.
But she's executing it badly.
It is not her independent decision.
It is.
That's your judgment, frankly.
Sydney, this ministry has not shown any clear signs of any progress when it comes to the technology-driven space. Most of the stuff they are doing, the big stuff they are doing, are all grounded in some fishy deal. And it's offensive to actually be listening to them speak the way they speak. Look, they said they engaged GIBBA. GIBBA wrote a letter in February. No response. September, they said they actually now gave a response. This same ministry and attorney GVG. Hold on, I'm just telling you. No, but that's the same problem.
It's the same issue.
So if you are saying that the ministry is actually on solid grounds in terms of driving policy and actually having the courtesy to even give responses. The case of Kelly GVG, after several months, they issued a response and said, we are locating the documents. I mean, what type of policy making?
And I'm saying that, is it not symptomatic of our general public sector space?
Well,
so you have to single out the ministry.
No, but we are discussing the ministry.
Yeah, but you have to situate it properly. If that is how the public sector organizations behave,
we've written to several ministries. Within a week, they give responses.
Exactly. If you have that, then
even the vice president's office responds.
Frankly, you have absolute rights. All right, in your capacity
to go back to that. Let's make progress.
To determine and to judge and to decide who is performing and who is not performing. That is entirely your prerogative.
That's
all right.
True.
So there's nothing wrong with you saying what you're saying, that you're not getting the kind of response that you think you should be getting from the ministry.
Oh, I'm actually not clamoring for it. I'm just stating that that's the way they behave.
What I'm saying is that we have been driving an issue for decades now, that the institutions must be allowed to work. All right? Now, here we are. The Ministry of Communication is making decisions. You are saying that there's policy incoherence and there's no clear strategy and that it is wrong. Now you are saying because of that, the president should interfere. And the president's policy has been, I will not interfere.
Nobody has asked for the president.
I'm not referring to you in particular. Suhuyini has said it. But it's not you particularly who said this. But here's another situation.
Because
we have a crisis in the banking sector. All right? We have a crisis in the banking sector. A group of banks come together and call themselves the Indigenous Banking Association. They go to lobby the president to intervene and to instruct the governor of the Bank of Ghana to desist from his policies and his strategy and not to insist on the recapitalization of the banking sector, which he says he's going to do in order to be able to sanitize the banking system. And he meets with them, but he decides that he will not interfere as a general policy to allow the institution to do its job. If the Bank of Ghana and the governor says that this is what I want to do in order to be able to manage my sector properly.
I think
this is what I want to do.
Two different.
Yes, but I just want to get back to the
two different things.
Let's get back to the main matter.
The Bank of Ghana is an entity or an institution
supposed to be independent.
that is supposed to be independent.
Yes.
The Ministry of Communication
yes.
is, by extension, an arm of the presidency, because the minister is only acting on behalf of the president.
Absolutely. So
but the Bank of Ghana is not working on behalf of the president.
So whatever the ministry says, whatever the ministry says, and whatever strategy the ministry is rolling, should be seen as the president's strategy.
But the buck stops with the president. And so if the minister speaks and we are not convinced about what the minister is telling us, it is important for the president to speak on that matter and
for as long as
the
president is not speaking and not interfering,
so it means he's
condoning.
He's in agreement with the ministry. Then that is terrible.
There's nothing terrible about it.
The president supports what is going on at the Ministry of Communication.
Because
by the way,
my goodness, because you say it is wrong.
That's not what the president has said.
No, because that is what Sadi is saying. If the president is not speaking, I can assume that the president supports what's going on.
Yes,
and that is terrible.
He is condemned because
wrap up on this, and then we will read some more messages. We'll be right back.
Live music, interviews, poetry, and more with your favorite personalities. Be our guest on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for the most exciting moments on TV. Join Cudjoe for real entertainment right in your living room. Saturday Live on City TV and City 97.3 FM.
Wherever the weekend sporting action happened, we will bring it to you here on Scorecard. Every goal, every dunk, every punch, the winning strides, and the winning volleys.
International media, he said, look, wait, sit and wait. Let me have a meal with my people. And I think that's the same cool, it's the same organization he brings to the field every time I've seen him play. He looks to me like somebody who has played over 50 caps already. Okay. But this guy has barely played over 25 caps for the national team.
All of the weekend's action in one place. Scorecard, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. prompt on City TV. For regular news checks as they unfold, 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes.
Quero ver todo mundo balançando. Ninguém pode ficar parado. Essa loucura.
Witness the twisted and tangled story of betrayal, greed, vengeance, and love in the award-winning Brazil Avenue. Carmenia, a woman led by greed, gets rid of her husband, who is Rita's father, and sends Rita away to a filthy landfill. Rita finds love in Batata, but they are soon separated by adoption into different families, far away from each other. Many years later, all paths cross again, as Rita, now a renowned chef, seeks to pay back her stepmother for taking away her happiness as a child. It's a story of twists, turns, suspense, and thrilling action in Brazil Avenue. Brazil Avenue, coming soon only on City TV. Brazil Avenue.
You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live on 97.3 City FM and on City TV. We are coming to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. We've been discussing the Ministry of Communications, StarTimes and GIBA pass in respect of the DTT platform. And very interesting views you have been sharing. Some of the comments you've sent us. David from Bolga says, please tell Franklin Cudjoe to get hard and tough with his knowledge, just like he did during the Kelly GVG. Casely-Hayford should try and criticize MPP when things are going wrong. Piero from Akwetiman, please, is Sydney there to only play the devil's advocate or do propaganda for government? Please ask GIBA, the GIBA man, do they know that Joy Prime is watched in Nigeria in all homes? Ask Joy Group how much they pay start time in Nigeria. Tony from Spintex. I'm Akoto from Jolu. Please, can you... okay. All right, so that's noted. More comments coming in. Quite a lot of comments, and I'm just trying to read through them. Can you make your comments quite short? I know it's WhatsApp, but can you make it quite short so that we can read it for you? Please, kindly ask Franklin Cudjoe that when was the last time their government supported the creative arts people, when the Honorable Minister says Kofi Annan funeral will bring a lot of tourist attraction to the country. He didn't mean harm, especially the food they will eat. Hashtag the big issue. This is Gideon in the United States of Ashaman. Some more comments. Can you make your comments a bit short? Salam, I remember very well comments from your panelists from the PPP when government decided to halt the activities of the GFA regarding the suffering of the local football clubs, and it's now interesting hearing his comments. Okay, all right. So my guests this morning are Sydney Casely-Hayford, Franklin Cudjoe, Alhassan Suhuyini, and Prince Crystal. We've been looking at the matter of the DTT and the platform, Ministry of Communications, StarTimes, and the matters arising. I want us to move the discussion forward. I want us to quickly look at the 300 communities and the 6,000 households we hear will be benefiting from that, after which we look at the way forward and we'll move on to the next discussion, which is on the fuel price hikes and matters arising. So I come back to you, Prince. You know, where were you guys when the 300 communities were selected for this purpose? And what's your understanding of what went into the selection of these 300 communities to benefit from this satellite activity?
Here again, this is the frustrations of GIBA. We haven't been consulted. We haven't been called into any stakeholder meeting. We are completely lost and in the dark regarding this.
But when did this start? It started quite a while ago.
In 2015, it was announced by the president of China that there was going to be a project for 10,000 communities in Africa to enjoy access to information.
From China?
From China. Mm. And this is a project that has been undertaken in various countries, Burundi, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and now Ghana. So Ghana, per the project, is to benefit from access to satellite television for 300 villages. Today we hear the villages have now turned to communities. So I don't know whether it's communities or villages. And one question we ask, technically, how do you confine satellite signals to 300 villages? How did you select the 300 villages? What are the receptive devices that the 300 village beneficiaries are going to use in receiving the satellite signal? Why are we drifting away from the roadmap, which is to deploy digital migration through DTT instead of DTH? Now, with the use of the receptive devices, are they going to be on condition? I mean, do they have conditional access devices, systems embedded in them, or it is completely free to air? Do we have Ghanaian channels amongst the 20 to 30 channels that are intended to be given to the communities, or it is just a downlink of Chinese content for the viewing pleasure of our Ghanaian populace? So a lot of questions are there to be asked.
But how are these centers going to be operationalized? How is it going to be like? Is it going to be? How is it going to be like? Are they going to build like cinemas. I don't understand how it works. Every household
I would be the wrong person to answer that question.
But since you are in the industry,
this is something championed by the Ministry of Communications in partnership with StarTimes. So they can best tell how they are deploying their screens and all that to all the centers.
The 6,000 households be affected.
Yes.
Yeah,
so they are deploying solar-powered TV projectors. They are giving 32 inches.
Like evangelization.
So let's say Jackson Park somewhere. Let's say the Independence Square somewhere. Then there will be a big screen.
Maybe in the evening to be watching.
And that is for the 900 public center viewing areas. Then I believe amongst the
let's understand that there are 300 communities, and
out of which 6,000 households will be given receivers to receive these channels.
Oh, okay.
And away from the 6,000, 900 public centers will also be chosen to also receive these signals.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you even combine or do the mathematics, look at the number of receivers that are to be.
This is the policy direction of the ministry
and yes,
communication.
We are.
Jesus Christ!
I mean,
what is this?
And yet the signal is available for only 6 months.
You see the deliberate policy by the Chinese government to push its agenda.
But that's the point. Exactly. What's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs doing? What is the plan?
The 900 other centers, I mean, the public viewing centers. A lot of them will be institutions. I mean,
yes, they mentioned hospitals,
key places, hospitals, for example.
Libraries,
so you are in your hospital bed,
and the matter,
you have no control about the channels.
You see, when I say the ministry is supervising such incoherence policy making and actually deliberately insulting us, it's an example. You have no. You see, you never came to discuss this with the stakeholders, and then of course Ghanaians do not know. All we are here, we start watching Commander 45. This, that. Is that the kind of policy making we need? Or maybe do we use some government propaganda?
With GIBBA is that you guys are players in the industry, and you know this is happening, and they are penetrating the market.
No.
And you kept quiet. The things have almost crystallized.
It's not about keeping quiet. No. You see, this is the reason why you see this 6-page document in the newspaper.
I wasn't surprised.
We have chased these issues many times.
I said.
No, but we have had to come out this way. A bit too late.
No,
because
we are even not late.
Almost everything is been crystallized.
We are not late.
The communities have been selected. You know, the equipment tax waivers have been granted. You know,
why won't you even give those tax waivers and subsidize boxes for people to migrate from analog to digital using a common free-to-air box? Because according to the August 2010 report, one of the things to do to be able to migrate people from analog to digital is to help them have access to migrating easily, because with the CRT, or what we call the Tikopor TVs, they are analogs. So you need a device that can down convert for the people to continue watching without having to spend so much on the ID TVs or the LED screens. So there was the need for government to bring in set-top boxes, and that was the reason why there was a tender, I think some 3 or 4 years ago, to allow about 1.2 million boxes into the country, so it will be easy for people to pick and have television signals in digital form.
Very well. GIBBA serves on the NMC board, I guess so.
Yes.
So what is the position? Does NMC have a position on this?
NMC's
given
position...
the guy supposed to be, if you like, regulating that space. What is the NMC's position on this?
NMC is particularly looking at content regulation.
Yes.
Kinds of
and this is a
content.
content matter as well.
No, it's not a content matter.
It borders on content because the satellite signals you're receiving from StarTimes are content issues. They are foreign materials.
They are not
Ghanaian materials.
There's infrastructure and physical hardware issues.
Yes.
Which are separate. And content is a different matter.
Yes.
But content is the key.
But content is even the content they are bringing can be in contravention of the cultural policy of Ghana.
Yeah.
Because how many Ghanaian channels are going to be on there on the satellite space? And if they are going to be on the satellite space, are they going to be free on air as it is, or it will be on condition?
But Prince, wait, hold on. You see, a part of me also
it's technical. That it's a bit.
There must be competition. I like competition, by the way. Question I have for the ministry: whether they did an impact competition in analysis of the impact of these Chinese, particularly soft power, global reach approach on the competition in the country. I mean, this for me is one of the questions I have for them.
No, you see, and Franklin, back to my point. They want something from the people. This is what they have. So it's either you take it or you walk away.
Or you don't take it.
No, but
yes.
Well, of course, somebody decided not to do it anyway. There's an alternative to do the expansion.
That is the sale of the 4G spectrum.
Exactly.
You know, so you know, they might have thought about all these.
That's why I tell you that there's so much incoherence in the space. Where you expect the ministry to be building on the capabilities of the mobile telephony space. Cell spectrum, which is very high, by the way. It was $60-something million.
Yeah, 67, I think. Yeah.
It's too much. Okay. But let's just say that in this case, maybe we play the devil's advocate. 67 million is a lot of money. If you probably even reduce it for the likes of Vodafone and Alta-Tigo, you are making some $50 million cool money, which you can then use to build the infrastructure and own it, and actually help others develop content. I would think this is a much more better strategy. And probably I recommend another book to the ministry.
No, I think you need to write to them.
We have not finished reading this one.
Quickly, we've been told that by the end of this month there will be that big stakeholder engagement. Are you guys going to engage?
Definitely.
And a number of things have been said will be discussed. Digital switch over, a roadmap, the management of the DTT platform, current draft DTT policy, status of the DTT infrastructure, enhancement of the DTT network. When you discuss all these things, would your concerns have been addressed?
Well, it's subject to discussion when we sit at the stakeholder meeting.
But do you have a feeling that the ministry just wants to have you talk, but they will go ahead and do what they want to?
Actually,
do you have a feeling?
It does happen all the time.
Yeah. Actually, that's the body language of the ministry.
Chris, what you mustn't forget is this. You can criticize the ministry, and you can criticize government. You can disagree with what government is doing, and you can suggest and offer a new pathway. There is no way that anybody is obligated to listen to you.
Of course. But that's the same language the ministry is using. Sydney, why are you taking your notes from?
No.
The minister just said this morning that we won't listen to you because you can have your say.
Very carefully.
And I feel that language is very, very
Listen to me very carefully.
Not good.
Governments can decide, all right, whether or not to accept the criticism or not.
That's true.
It's a prerogative. Their future as governors of the country survives or falls on that policy. Okay? But if you, as a citizen, feel aggrieved enough and you feel you have a case in order to be able to chart a new territory, the only recourse that you have is to either lobby Parliament or go to court. Okay? There's no other choice. So realistically, that is what you have to decide to do.
And we are not there yet. That is why we needed
precisely.
a stakeholder
engagement. Let us keep criticizing. Let us keep pointing out the flaws in what is being done. Let us make it very clear that the policy that is being stuck to at this stage, going forward, is not going to do anything for the citizens of this country. If the ministry decides that it is not going to accede, then let us find an opportunity to take the case to court and to force them and coerce them to do what we believe to be right.
That's right.
But when it's all said and done, with any of these things that we are following through, it all boils down to money. Who is winning and who is losing?
It's true.
The Chinese want to propagate their culture, so they do so. All right? In whichever form they think they can win it, they do it. They do it everywhere. Even in the US, they have their cultural push. All right. Here as well, we also have indigenous organizations that have a cultural push. Do you watch Obonu TV? Have you ever watched Obonu TV? It is a whole program surrounding the culture.
Is it the one which does the dancing thing?
No.
It's a whole program about the culture and society of the Ga people.
Yeah.
All right? And they have that. They also are pushing their culture and trying to establish themselves as a unit within our society that has been ignored for too long and should be looked at. So, this is what society is all about.
That's right.
Everybody trying to make themselves heard. But when it comes to this, you need money to develop or expand the terrestrial space.
Platform. Yeah.
And you haven't got it. You haven't got it. Unless GIBBA wants to come together, go and raise money, set up a...
No, the platform has been set up. It's in place.
The platform is already...
There is no need for any expansion.
So our complaint is that the Chinese are going to come and tell us how to do Kung Fu.
interwoven.
I love Bruce Lee movies. Since he died,
so good for you.
Jackie Chan and
so good for you.
And who is it? What's the other guy's name? Another Lee. Right? Jet Li. That is what you watch.
All right. So Honorable Suhuyini, what is the way forward? Is a minority? We've not really heard from the minority as a unit. We've heard yourselves and individual people with information on the matter talk about this. But you guys were in Parliament. Tax waivers were granted, amongst other things. What is the way forward in all this? Your last comment on this matter.
Maybe before I propose a way forward, I think that it's important I respond to a texter who asks about the relationship between the NDC and StarTimes dating back to 2012. You know, when I started the discussion, I talked about how sometimes our problems as a nation remain the same, but the approaches are different. But if you are someone who is not detailed enough to follow the discussions, you tend to think that we are going over the same things and the two parties are doing the same things, and so they are both the same. I mean, but if you pay attention closely, you'll understand that the point I made was that there was a need for the country to migrate. There was a deadline. The country decided to start the process early. The country at that time did not have fiscal space to fund it on its own. So StarTimes offered with an EXIM facility. I mean, any reasonable government at that point would have taken that offer. And so government did by awarding them the contract to start the process. Unfortunately, for 2 years, StarTimes was unable to.
Okay, I think you said that earlier.
Yeah, so I'm reiterating
to
answer the texter. That look, so government, yes, given the circumstances that it found itself in 2012, thought that StarTimes had the capacity. But
eventually it was
proven that when it realized that it did not have the capacity, did not pussyfoot.
Very well.
Actually raising the money.
Yes.
Was the issue.
Yes.
Very well. Because I understand they didn't even meet Exim Bank's own technical criteria.
Exactly.
That's
why
the government sent a lot of people joined the discussion.
Simply cancelled that contract and decided to look within ourselves, and so the way forward,
and that was bold.
So
to think to deal with China and on that state, and they lost a couple of routes.
So Salam, I'm saying that the way forward is that just like the NDC government, when it was faced with this challenge, looked within, the NPP should not continue looking to China, especially when the infrastructure has come this far.
Well, we have to,
because at the time, we didn't even have nothing. I mean, we're at ground zero. Now we have looked within, we have developed the infrastructure to a point where about 40 channels can now be on that infrastructure. And so if China is holding us to ransom because we want 19 billion, I mean, we can, considering the conditions that are against our interests, decide that once again, we will look within.
Okay.
And if we do, we will find the resources. And on the issue of especially because we now have the 4G spectrum that we can even use to expand if we want to. And again, the discussion is not being helped by the dishonesty that I find coming from the ministry. And I made that point earlier about the suggestion that the only engagement with StarTimes has to do with distribution of, digi boxes, which is not true, just as I have demonstrated by reading the minister's own report to the AG, where she says that she has cabinet approval for StarTimes to commence expansion of the infrastructure. One, that is sole sourcing. Sole sourcing that they criticize against so much. If indeed, I mean, the minister is to be believed, it means they have simply picked StarTimes, unlike the first case,
which was
where it was an international competitive tender process.
May I ask an ignorant question? May I ask
if I could just land.
Expansion of what?
The DTT infrastructure.
From 40 channels
to about 100 channels. Why? Yes, again, why?
That is the same question
why
we are asking
it now? Exactly. So you see, if you even tie
100 channels, you have
if you tie the question why, to the claim that we need money. The question is, yes, we need money, but do we have to accept it at, you know, any kind of condition that is thrown at us? Now the 300 please, I'll just wrap up in a minute on
the
that
ones who exist at the moment, they are not making money.
Now
you want to go and add another 60.
The 300, I think Sydney is now coming on board.
So you see, so this issue is not really that about money, but about the extension of the soft power of China.
Yes,
which is a very interesting.
I'll just wrap up on the 300. It's important that we don't also lose sight of the fact that StarTimes since 2014 thereabout have become a player in the industry. And if you see StarTimes adverts today, they are offering free digi boxes to people already.
Penetration strategy.
As a penetration strategy. Now our government says
a penetration strategy.
Yes. But good. But the digi boxes they are bringing in that they are offering free of charge. They pay taxes on it.
Correct.
Now, because of a partnership with our government, they will bring in about 6,000 digi boxes or more without paying taxes to further their penetration strategy.
So when they will get of our local people,
you know, as against competitors who are local players in the. So it is clearly an unfair practice against our own, industry players.
So 6,000 boxes
or more
will dominate
the market.
The market?
Yes.
No.
It will not dominate.
No, what
it
I'm
will
saying
not dominate, but it is still a strategy.
Let us understand it. Now, without that partnership, StarTimes is already
taxes on those.
They are paying taxes and they are doing it. Now, government is helping them to have 6,000 more without paying tax.
And that will not even be the end.
Against their competitors. Now, maybe their competitors are not giving free digi boxes because they can't afford the cost. They would have also loved to. But StarTimes is doing it. And that is going to be strengthened by government giving them a tax waiver.
Corporate social responsibility.
And then the point is that you are gradually making StarTimes boxes a de facto box for the market.
For the market. You see, and so that is an unfair.
And this
because
is
they are free?
No. There is even a component within the expansion they claim that would have conditional accesses. And these boxes StarTimes is bringing has conditional access.
Sydney, another point you must take note of.
So Prince GIBBA, why are you not in court protesting against unfair?
Another thing they must pay attention to is the fact that this is just for 6 months.
And
they will start paying.
Agreed.
This is just for 6 months.
Because the minute you go to court, we'll take a few of your text messages. What they are doing.
Sydney, this text message is to you. Sydney is not getting it. I think he needs to be briefed, or maybe I think he's one-sided today. He should speak. He should speak on issues like he used to do. I think he has come home. I think he said he's always been home, so he's always been around. Imani is meant to be a think tank and should not allow their emotions to dominate their arguments. Take note, Franklin. Don't allow your banter with the Ministry of Communications influence or commentary on every issue. There is another person. Peter Nyama Odro from Manchester in the UK. So this is a diasporan speaking to you, see, Franklin. You know him? Okay, great. Some of the fourth panelist, not Suhuyini, Franklin, and Sydney. That is called Prince Crystal. He seems to understand the whole issues. Can you give him some time to explain what DTT is, what it means when one controls the DTT? Mohammed Ibrahim, I think he's had enough time to do that. He's spoken a lot, and if you listen from the beginning, we started from that basic point. So he's done a lot of talking, Prince. Franklin must know the Ministry of Communication does not report to him. I agree with Sydney that he has a right to form any opinion of his on the ministry, but must know there are equally qualified personnel there. Also, there's a vast difference between theory and application. Please stop making your argument personal. Kwame Ateshi, hashtag the big issue.
Because that's the way you're coming across it. No, but because these are listeners and they are telling you that this is what.
No, because they are unresolved issues. We are always seeing patterns. The same thing. This was the same thing.
GPS.
Don't forget.
So maybe you have an
was the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
So many examples today.
All right, so
we get personal.
We've been discussing this for a while, certainly because it's very big. We want to move on and look at the other issue, that is the increases in the fuel prices or the increase in the fuel prices. This week, finally, we hit the 5 Ghana cedi mark. At some pumps, you have petrol going for 5 cedis, 12 pesos. At other places, it's more or less. But generally, it's around 5 cedis, 12 pesos. So now it's almost 1 liter, 1.
Are we doing that first before we do the depreciation matter?
No, it's together. Because, yes. So the concern really has been that the cost or the increase in the fuel prices has been mainly due to Ghana's weak currency. Because the cedi has depreciated so badly. Now we need a lot of cedi to buy the dollar, and so that affects the price. And also because there's rising, the cost of crude on the world market is also rising. It's about $78 per barrel now. Of course, it's not the highest we've seen, but after the glut, it appears to be rising this time. So putting these two together, mainly the depreciation of the cedi, that is why we are here. And I've heard the minority this week suggest that some of the taxes on the oil, on the fuel must be scrapped. I'll start with the MP, the minority MP, Honorable Suhuyini. Your side addressed a press conference this week, and they said that the special petroleum taxes should be scrapped. We must also admit or acknowledge that the government, when it took over, true to its promise, reduced that particular tax from about 17.5 to about 15 or so. Quite some things have been done. Some taxes have been scrapped, the nuisance taxes so-called. All these things have been done, but it doesn't appear to be solving it. What really is the concern of your guys?
But sorry, Stella, you have to make it, you have to let the record show that it was the NDC government that put the special tax on the petroleum.
Sure. So, yes.
So let's really discuss it from that angle.
I will. You know, first of all, I think it is inaccurate to say that true to the promise of the NPP, they did something.
They said they were going to reduce some taxes and scrap others.
No, they said they were going to scrap the nuisance taxes.
But
it's a special petroleum tax and nuisance tax.
All the taxes.
Is the tax on the condoms that is a nuisance?
All the taxes.
And the cutlasses.
All the taxes they described as nuisance taxes are still in place. Even if they have tinkered with it, they are still in place.
The
promise, however,
VAT on airfares, local domestic airfares, that's gone, right?
That's gone.
The VAT on real estate,
on financial transactions is gone.
You see, I don't want us, because we don't. I can see we don't have much time, so I want to make some points on this matter. I will not debate this other one.
And you're not endorsing it.
No, I won't endorse it.
He's conveniently swerving. He's swerving where he knows he's
Salom. We once again, I'll have to go to my default position that if you don't pay attention to the issues, you think they are the same, and that all the political parties that have been in power continue to do the same things. But when you pay attention, you realize that a discussion around the depreciation of the cedi is a constant factor. A discussion around fuel price increases is a constant factor. But the circumstances, the approaches are different. They don't remain the same. So, for example, we had a theory that was propounded by a party now in government. The theory was simple, that the depreciation of the cedi and increment in fuel prices were as a result of insensitivity and incompetence. That was a theory. Nothing else was acceptable as the reasons why the cedi was depreciating and why fuel prices were going up. The conclusion or the theory that was held was that these things were happening as a result of what? Incompetence and insensitivity. Now, the party that was in government at the time took time to explain some of the circumstances that led to the situation where you had a cedi depreciating and maybe petrol prices going up. All the reasons were dismissed as non-reasons. It is intriguing to hear, suggestions that are confirming some of the positions that were given or reasons that were given for the situation that we had where the cedi was depreciating or the fuel prices were going up. In 2013, for example, I'll just give you practical examples. We had an election petition for about 8 months. That had a toll on business because many companies were hedging. They did not know what the outcome of the election petition will be. And so business was slow in 2013. You also had a power crisis that was inherited because we have had Dumso under President Kufuor, we have had Dumso under President Rawlings, and we had Dumso under President Mills. It was inherited in 2013.
Inherited from the same NDC?
Well, but inherited from governments even before that NDC.
But it was because the previous government did not project properly and think well.
No, I am saying that there was a government before that Mills government. And so the governments before 2013, yes, including that NDC government, did not make the necessary investments in the power sector. And so the impact came hitting in 2013. It was not brought from Bali, the president's hometown at the time. It has to be understood.
Well, that's an interesting image.
Then thirdly, you had the West Africa gas pipeline being affected by an accident.
Act of God.
By an accident.
It was an act of God.
Nobody went in government to deliberately disrupt the gas process. Then you had gold prices plummeting. You had, fuel prices, crude plummeting. You had cocoa prices plummeting. That was the context within which you had a cedi depreciating. That was a context that you had the cedi depreciating even up to about 30%. And then you had single spine. I almost forgot of that.
But single spine has been around since.
No, but I'm saying 2013. I'm just talking about
it.
I'm talking about the context.
Your fault. Yeah, single spine 2009.
I'm talking about the context of the situation that we were faced with. So cedi was depreciating, fuel prices obviously were going up. So the NDC, in dealing with it, introduced a number of measures. One of those measures included some of these taxes that are called they've described as nuisance taxes, the special petroleum tax.
Taxing condoms.
Now
was an important part of the strategy.
Now, and you see, the mettle of a leader is determined when a nation is faced with a problem or in crisis. It's not when things are smooth. By 2016, because of the measures government had put in place, the depreciation of the cedi had come down to about 9% from about 32%. It tells you that the interventions were working.
The IMF intervention and all.
I'm saying the interventions. Yes,
handing over our economy to the IMF.
No, it was actually a special
policy
package.
Credibility, so-called.
Let's not even. But I'm saying that the results is important. If you focus on the process, you can find problems with some of the processes. But yes, the results was important. It means the measures were working. You also had a situation where the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, together with BOST, GOIL, using the special stabilization levy that was also on petrol, started regulating in some way to the advantage of the consumer fuel prices in this country. Now, I've painted that picture. And so, but yet fuel was still about 14 to 16 cedis a gallon. And that was considered intolerable, unacceptable, insensitive, and a mark of incompetence. All the factors that led to that situation were discounted, even though they are facts and they were real issues that had to be confronted. Now we move into 2017. The conditions are different. You don't have a power crisis because it had been resolved before you came to power.
No, that's disputed.
It is not.
This government says it
was
resolved.
Disputed when you want.
I think it was on its way to getting resolved.
But
the interventions made actually helped.
But in replacement of that, you had the huge charges that were sitting there, which you have to pay.
If you check critically
on the
Dr. Bawumia is on record
the cash requirements
to have chastised President Mahama for claiming credit for the resolution of Dumso because in his view it was too late in the day. He was not challenging the fact that it had been resolved. He was chastising him for taking credit because in his view it was too late.
But Bamia was really a thorn in your flesh.
So the fact is that it was resolved by the NDC. Yes, we were told not to take credit because we had supervised it for so long. But there is no question about the fact that it was resolved. So there was no power crisis in 2017. Again, you didn't have a West Africa gas pipeline situation because the NDC had put up the gas infrastructure. Again, you did not have, or in 2017 till now, you do not have a situation where your export commodities are going down. Again, you do not have a situation where single spine is still a challenge, where the revenue that you generate all goes to single spine. Again, you do not have a court issue that slowed down business. So you look at that scenario then and the scenario now, and you ask yourself, why are the competent managers unable to do anything when they have better conditions? And the question is, if, for example, we introduce the special petroleum tax, and that's, I'm coming to our press conference. If we introduce the special petroleum tax at a time that crude prices had gone so low, below even our estimations, which were put in the budget.
$56 per barrel.
Fantastic. And it went to almost 30. Now, at the time, we needed, and remember, Ghana is now a net exporter of crude. So, if we projected that we're going to make this much by exporting crude, and then crude prices had come down on the international market, you needed to support that shortfall in revenue. It to be low, you needed to use that advantage, that windfall, to augment the revenue that you were going to lose from exporting crude. So it was a rational, reasonable thing to do, which was introduced. Today, as we speak, the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, when he came to Parliament, projected crude at 57. Today, crude is selling beyond $70. So you have simply no reason to maintain a tax that was introduced to augment a revenue shortfall as a result of low crude prices. In fact, if you keep it, you are not only insensitive, you are gluttonous. Because you actually were expecting crude to sell at 57. Today it's selling at about 70. So you are getting so much revenue. What do you need the revenue from special petroleum tax for?
It's free HSS.
I am saying that you are already getting in excess of 20% of your prediction on crude. So why do you need special pay when a removal of that can lead to some comfort?
But you see, the argument is also being made that, so the free SHS, fine. But the free SHS policy is now making money remain in the pockets of parents. So, for example, you have a child or two in the senior high school, SS1 or 2, you no more pay fees.
Now, how does that?
I don't know. I am confused. As if you want us to discuss.
He's talking about the government.
He's saying that you've maintained a tax.
I'm dealing with his insensitivity point. It had a specific purpose. Mm-hmm. The tax had a specific purpose.
So now the purpose,
it has outlived its usefulness.
So it must go.
It must go. Again, the NDC, I talked about the stabilization levy that was introduced to use to regulate the market to the advantage of the consumer. This government has mismanaged that levy, the application of that levy. And I think that is why we have these problems. Because if you recall in 2016, there was that partnership I spoke of between Ghana Infrastructure Fund, BOST, and GOEL to use that levy to store up strategic stock. Farm tanks were supposed to have been constructed around the country so that as we enjoy that windfall at the time, we will have some stock available for times like this. For times like this. But this government has mismanaged and misapplied that levy that today it has no impact on the consumer.
When you say times like this, what do you mean? Because you've argued that times are better. You improved everything before.
I didn't say we improved everything. I said the situations, the contexts are not the same. The context in which those levies were introduced, the conditions today are better. And so we should be seeing better, especially from people who said they knew better. I mean, if you were criticizing somebody when he was in a ditch and he was telling you his effort at coming out of the ditch, and you said you could have come out of that ditch better, And God being so good, you take over at a time the person is actually out of the ditch. Then you should be on top of the mountain. But you should not still be crawling around the ditch.
But you put us in the ditch.
Nobody put us in the. You see, as a country, we put ourselves in the ditch. That's why I told you that.
Scenarios.
That's why I told you. Look, nobody went to disrupt the gas pipeline, so we didn't. Nobody brought Dumso from Bali, so we didn't. Nobody, even if we are going to apportion blames, we know those who took us to the Supreme Court, which led to business slowing down. But we don't even want to do that. So let us okay, look.
That's unfair. Sydney.
So please come in because
I
want to land on that theory that I started with, which was given as the reason why petroleum prices and the cedi was depreciating. If you go by that theory today, this government has no excuse than to make life better. Because the theory was propounded at a time that conditions were worse off than they are today.
And the verdict is that the conditions haven't improved.
So I'm saying that the only reason, if we are going by that theory, Ghanaians are paying more for fuel. And the cedi is depreciating, is because of super incompetence and a gluttonous government that does not seem to care about the plight of the people, if I'm going by that theory. But I am saying that as a party, we are sensitive enough and we know that it may not be as a result of insensitivity. It may not be as a result of incompetence, but it may just be as a result of the prevailing conditions that this government has put itself into. The promises, the unachievable and unattainable promises that they made, they should concede that, for example, they stock too much. They promise too much. And I am sure they are afraid of being seen as dishonest. And that is why they are stubbornly driving us all into what I see will be another ditch. Because we're almost out of the woods. And that is why you had a situation where all the fundamentals were improving. And today, if you talk about GDP, you talk about the interest rates, you talk about inflation,
they've all improved actually.
All of those were on the way up before the NPP came to power.
Okay.
I mean, for example, the GDP is largely contributed by the oil, production. The 10 fields, the Sankofa, and ENI deals that they lambasted clearly are the reasons why the GDP is doing better today.
Oh, how?
Clearly, I mean, you check the record. So I'm saying that if it is not a mark of dishonesty, then the government should be able to admit that, look, we didn't understand the situations. We didn't understand the things we spoke about. And so we are going to cut down on some of the promises that we made and deal with the realistic and reasonable ones.
Very well. Sydney, he's made quite a number of points. Analyzing the situation quite, articulating the situations quite well. What do you think?
I hope I don't take more than 5-10 minutes to talk about this.
5 minutes.
No, I can't do it in 5 minutes.
Okay,
I think Suhuyini has made good points.
Okay.
It is good to hear the analysis of historical analysis and facts to be swerved to their advantage of how they've been able to achieve all of these things. What he didn't say was that the cost of living in Ghana went up considerably during the 8-year tenure that they were in power. But I don't want to address that. You see, what we tend to forget is this. You cannot expect, in the structure of the economy that we have in this country, that the exchange rate will not depreciate. All right? I don't know what it is that politicians are expecting to happen when everything that we're doing economic-wise is based on imports into the country. Everything you are doing, all right? StarTimes, Kelly GVG, everything you are doing, you are importing. You are importing so much, you are importing even food that you can grow in the country. I want to make it as simple as possible for the listener. All right? But you cannot run an economy when you are importing $2 billion worth of food. And particularly food that you can grow in your backyard. All your clothes are imported. We are all wearing them. We are all testimony to it. We don't have a cotton industry.
What you are wearing from China or Sudan?
See, we don't have a cotton industry. And yet we can grow cotton. We don't have a spinning factory to do cloth. And yet we can do it. There was a time when there was a company that was doing that, Spintex. And even that was foreign owned. Printex. And there was Spintex as well. They used to spin the yarn to make cloth. All right? We have Ghana, we have GTP. We have Akosombo Textiles. We have so many things Japan Textiles that we could do. We've collapsed every single one of them. And instead, we import. We're importing from China.
Parliament.
We're importing from Singapore. We're importing from Taiwan. Even chairs in Parliament, they imported from China.
The chamber now looks like the Chinese chamber.
Absolutely.
Why are you complaining about StarTimes?
And then when we talk about it, when the thing came up, we talk about it, instead of Parliament doing the right thing, cancelling the contract and using local entrepreneurs, they stubbornly refused and went and took the sophisticated chairs plus laptops.
And the chair started breaking
in no time.
No time, yes.
All right? And not only that, we are getting food from Burkina Faso. We get onions from Burkina Faso, which we can grow here. We bring ginger from Burkina Faso, which we can grow here. Tomatoes. We have factories. Wenchi, Pualogu, all of them. They don't have enough tomatoes to be able to do tomato processing and puree. Our favorite one, Comenda. You can't even grow sugarcane to feed the Comenda factory. All right? And instead you import refined sugar. Go to any of the major supermarkets in this country. Who owns them? South Africa. ShopRite. Game. Maximart.
How about Palace?
All of those things. All of them are owned by foreigners.
The Chinese are also selling.
There's a China mall. There's a China mall now.
Yes, China mall. In fact, I'm going there after this.
I need some patronize.
I know. I need some things. I'm going to go and see if I can get them there because I can't get them at Makola.
And they may be cheaper there.
No, it's not a matter of cost. It's a matter of availability.
They will actually be cheaper too.
All right. Okay. It's a matter of availability. Okay. I need some solar panels which I'm trying to use for a project I'm doing at home, and I can't find anybody locally who has solar panels that I can explore.
Let's make some recommendations.
Okay? But what I'm saying is this. When your economy is import dependent, nobody has an argument, irrespective of what the situation and the conditions are.
But Basini, I get that point.
That
we've
the
heard that many
currency
times.
is depreciating.
But I think Suhuyini's point is that we knew all this before, but it was portrayed as if it was the incompetence of a certain regime that caused the difficulties. So the situation hasn't changed, but now we are here saying that we're now saying that these factors are those causing the problems we are in today.
And I'm saying that is not the case. That is not the case. The fact that the West Africa gas pipeline broke by an act of God, Suhuyini, don't forget.
Yes.
By an act of God. God hated us so much that he disrupted the flow of oil in this country.
But an accident is an act of God, isn't it?
The fact that
an accident isn't an accident an act of God. So how is that ridiculous? How is that ridiculous? You know, he makes it seem it's ridiculous to assign an accident to God.
Because the thing was disrupted by a vessel from Togo. Yeah. And instead of accepting that a Togo vessel had been allowed to come into our territorial waters so close to a pipeline that it disrupted it, we prefer to say it was an act of God. It was no act of God. It was a physical accident by a Togolese vessel. Come on.
So as a result of the incompetence of our Navy people, and by accident you hit someone with your car. It's not an act of God. It's a deliberate decision to hit someone because it's a physical thing. That's okay.
Some people overloaded the ferry in Tanzania.
There you go.
It's not that.
But you see,
that was an accident. It was an accident.
When we overload a canoe on the Volta Lake and it capsizes and people die, it is no act of God. It is an act of man for overloading the vessel.
Okay, but this
was carrying Ghanaian ministers and the president.
Togolese God is different from Ghana. What I'm saying is that irrespective of all the list of things that Suhuyini outlined, all right, for the doomsday not coming from Bole and all that issue. The bottom line is, it wasn't those problems that caused the depreciation of the cedi. The depreciation of the cedi is simply caused by the fact that we don't have enough productivity in this country to be able to meet any changes in international fluctuations. All right? When commodity prices change, when cocoa prices drop, gold prices drop, oil prices go up, all right? We cannot handle the shock because we are totally dependent on those international institutions. So you should expect that when things like that happen, and when in this particular instance, the dollar strengthens against all international currencies in the world because of policies being done by Franklin's favorite man, Trump. All right, Trump,
but
and therefore we have a currency strengthening of the U.S. You cannot expect that the cedi can match that strength of the dollar.
Now we are in for trouble because the dollar is actually going to strengthen.
Yeah, we are in for trouble. And we will be in for trouble for a long time, for as long as we continue doing what we are doing,
so what can
using
we do,
dollars to buy rice.
What can we do then? Strengthen local industry, plans for food and jobs.
You need to start looking internally and start doing the things and import substituting what you can do here. Why are we only doing 3,000 metric tons of cotton? It doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing only 7,000 metric tons of cashew and we import the rest from everywhere that we can find, when we can easily increase the volume that we are doing? Why do we carry on looking at simple things like rice and allowing foreigners? Because when you go into the market and you go and see who are importing rice into the country, they are all foreigners. They are not Ghanaians. Even if they were Ghanaians, at least we can expect that some Ghanaian is getting rich.
But you see, all that you are saying, we know all that you are saying, and there's a government which knows all this you are saying.
Yes.
But what is lacking is a policy decision. It's a policy to ensure that the imports are
substituted.
You know, we don't have this much imports coming into our system to put pressure on our currency. Are we seeing that? Is a planning for food and jobs the solution to this? Are we seeing that? Because it's 2 years into the administration.
You definitely must grow more food because you need to make sure you're food independent. Irrespective of what happens in the world, we must be food independent. If the international financial community collapses, we should be able to feed ourselves because we can grow the thing in our backyard. So it doesn't make any logical sense for anybody to sit down depending on other people to bring us food aid. It doesn't work. That's number one. Number two, we have local materials in this country. You know of a thing called pozzolana cement? Have you heard of anybody building a house with pozzolana cement? Because it's supposed to be 30-40% cheaper than the regular cement that we have.
It goes to our cultural orientation.
Who does the cement? Who does the cement blocks in this country? Two companies. The cement that is being provided is being provided by Gasem and Diamond Cement, all foreign companies. Where's the Ghanaian local component?
Jata
at least in Nigeria.
Jata is being frustrated.
Jata is being fascinated.
But Jata too, right? Jata is not Ghanaian.
Jata is very Ghanaian, but I don't want to go into the corruption.
See?
At least in Nigeria.
Why you don't have a Ghanaian firm in the industry?
Yeah,
because of the partiality.
We have Dangote in Nigeria.
Because of the
partiality. At least you have Dangote in Nigeria. All right? And it was a purpose strategy to give Dangote the opportunity to be able to build an industry in Nigeria.
You're saying
and I don't
everything.
want to discuss that.
Yeah, you're saying everything.
What I'm saying is that the arguments that the politicians put out, all right, which are supposed to sway us into accepting what one person is better than the other, are all totally the wrong thing.
But you see, we have a government in place now.
The depreciation of the CD, I'm surprised
he's an analyst.
It's not about everything that they're doing.
No, he's an analyst.
He's a politician. He's a politician. Come on.
Franklin is a politician, not me.
No, Franklin is an analyst, and he has demonstrated.
Franklin is a policy one.
You are a politician. He's a politician.
He's not.
Let's not
anybody who knows me,
we actually
don't worry about
political
we harass politicians.
My concern in this country, is that as much as we can solve the problem, our politicians don't have the willpower and the know-how to be able to fix the problem. That's my issue.
Right, very well.
They don't have the willpower and they don't have the know-how. And rather than sitting down and looking at the things that we have to do critically in order to make things work.
But why do you think they don't have the willpower to solve it?
If they have the willpower to solve it, why
don't they? Why don't they?
They do have the willpower. That's why I disagree. You see,
they don't have it.
Salom, I spoke earlier about the conditions and how things had started improving. What I didn't talk about was why the things were improving. They were not improving by accident. For example, you recall President Mohammed's State of the Nation address in 2014, where he spoke about the cedi depreciation and the interventions he was making. He talked about this import and export, imbalance that we have, and how he was working to ensure that we ameliorated the situation. That is when he spoke about Commander. That was 2014. And by 2016, Commander was up.
But Commander is a disaster.
Commander for the politics. No, that was
Commander is a disaster.
But you see, I'm saying if it was not,
it wasn't
like criticized the way
it wasn't criticized. It was
even
not,
if it had problems.
It was not.
Even if we had problems, the concept behind it was to bring about import substitution. So the discussion and criticisms, if it was tailored, in line with improving whatever was in place, we would have been producing sugar today. Again, Salom.
Yeah,
we reduce rice importation in this country by some of the measures that were put in place. Poultry importation was also reduced because of consistent, deliberate government policy.
Support to the local industry.
You had pharmaceutical industries and the chunk of foreign forex that goes out of this country by way of importing.
But the pharmaceutical industry was taxed heavily.
They were supported heavily also to expand. So that they will
so you tax them and you support them.
No, but they were supported heavily, and many of them have testified to how it helped them to improve and expand their production. So these were measures that led to a situation where you had a cedi that was depreciating at about 30%, coming to about 9% in 2016.
Let me bring in Frank.
So measures were deliberately put in place.
So by 2016, we had enough food in this country to feed ourselves.
Did I say that?
No, I'm asking you.
I'm saying that
things were improving.
They were improvements.
And I'm sure things are still improving.
Import poultry farmers were supported even if they didn't have enough of it, but at least there was that deliberate policy to support the poultry industry. And so because of that, importation of poultry reduced. That meant that our cedi was going to gain from that.
So for 8 years that you were in power, you couldn't grow enough rice to stop us from importing rice.
There was 8 years before that 8 years.
All right. So let's come down. The two guys
want us to do that one. We can
put everything together for us.
As I understand, they always
just in 2 minutes quickly.
I do not believe politicians from both sides of the aisle, in this case, our politicians are inherently evil. I guess they have good intentions. What they are always faulted on or about is the thoughtlessness in the grand design. So you talk about the Commander Sugar Factory. Sydney has made the point about being self-sufficient in food consumption, public production and consumption. So I may take a different view, but I think I like what he said. And in that context, if you decided that we were importing too much sugar, and so you wanted to do a Commander, there were 5 risk factors that we stated clearly at the time. And I suspect we still say the same for even 1D, 1F as well. That you needed 1,000 hectares to grow sugarcane. You needed almost $90 million and not $35 million at all. You needed a situation where you must have done some impact analysis on the market itself. But these things were rushed. And so to that extent, after a month or two, we saw that the Commander Sugar Factory really became a moribund entity. As always the case, we should be, I will not say humble, but we should always sit back and ask ourselves that until we have a coordinated policy or plan where every part of the government is talking to each other, and I'm using government here because government is the biggest spender in this economy. I mean, I like what you said about the fact that something can be done by politicians. I look at what Sydney is saying to us, and essentially, if we are driving free SHS policy, for instance, where we are feeding students, are we not feeding students as well? We are spending money. There used to be the school feeding, right? It's still government sponsored. These are things that are low-hanging fruits that through a coordinated policy beyond planting for food and jobs would have said, look, because we are the biggest spender and we are the biggest actor in this space, we probably want to be deliberate and ensure that a chunk of what we produce or a chunk of what we buy are actually coming from within the territory. So you give clear guidelines, you give clear targets that we want to meet this X amount of targets, so that those within the local space can be not supported, but can be at least have some certainty that of income, that if we did this, we are going to get this. As always, because it's a procurement economy that we've been running, what it is that even when we see clear needs, clear opportunities to, reduce our import bill, we rather choose the other option because we can get it from some other entity outside, and then through some procurement shenanigans, cream for ourselves 10%. I mean, I've always said that the type of economy we run is purely procurement laden, and that is how I'm doing. So much as I agree that, look, we need to be serious about our intent on not just feeding ourselves, but actually being bold and doing things for ourselves, even if it means encouraging local content in many aspects of our lives. I'm a big fan of local content, but the way it's being done must also be questioned. In fact, Amewu, by the way, the current energy minister, is also big on local content, and I pray that he stays true to his promise, because I think he has some really bright ideas. When I see those type of initiatives, I'm encouraged, because if we can emulate these thought processes and actually go ahead and activate them, we'll be reducing some of our import bills.
Absolutely.
It has to be said. Having said all of that, though, I think what Suhuyini was saying about the fundamentals probably looking okay, which means that some of the taxes on fuel ought to be looked at again, is absolutely spot on. But this is the challenge. The challenge is that the Ministry of Energy, previously, that this administration, rightly actually decided that we should have some respite in terms of our electricity pricing. So now that you have done that, and things are biting because you have to do other interventions, it means that you may not be able to actually sustain the argument of reducing or probably scrapping the tax on the fuel, because we've already given some respite in this particular field, especially the electricity sector. So I think there must be a balance of things, really. But it's important that at the end of the day, the politicization of this issue itself, while welcoming, and I like it, must be understood that, look, at this juncture, whether the cedi depreciated by 30% in the past or danced 70%, right now, the cedi is at 5 cedi to the dollar.
To the dollar.
That's all that matters. And what Sydney is saying is that we need to start looking. Being in war doesn't mean you are trying to have everything for yourself. It means you are being intent and deliberate and ensuring that the right targets are made.
And the right place. Take, for example, just so I can round up with Franklin, why are we importing textbooks into schools when we have enough knowledge and enough facilities here?
You know why? It's a cost of. You see, that's another matter. Which makes
we agree it's cheaper to import.
But we shouldn't make it
to import.
It is actually.
It's cheaper. So if I'm a business person, I'll prefer to import. If there's no deliberate policy to discourage me from doing so, why not? I'm a business person. I don't really care much.
If I'm a politician,
the
first thing I'll think of is that I need a paper industry so I can eliminate all those things that I'm bringing in.
So who should think like that?
This is what our government. I expect our government.
So if the governments are not doing it, I mean, if I'm a business person, I will do what will guarantee me returns.
For now, temporarily, fine. But you see, the minute you start thinking about locally publishing, the person who is importing is immediately going to start thinking about how can I get into that space.
So we need a deliberate policy.
You need a deliberate policy to intervene in all of those things.
But we don't have that. I really wanted to take your view on the Auditor General thing quickly.
All these imports to come in, you will never succeed.
3 minutes to do that. I'll give you 2 minutes on the Auditor General.
Suhuyini again. Because Prince hasn't said anything.
No, Prince is a technical. He's a DTT man.
He's a DTT man.
I actually wish I could just do some residual matter before I look at the.
No, we don't have time.
Yes, I will try and I'll try and contain my submission within the time that you have given me. You see, I agree with Franklin when he talks about the implementation of the Commander Sugar Factory having some issues. Yes, but I am saying that when you go beyond what problems existed at the time, and the discussion and contribution was tailored to how to make sure that the intent behind the establishment is realized, I'm sure we could have worked collaboratively better than we did. And today, we would have been at least producing some quantity of sugar in this country. And that would have meant that we would have been contributing to, stabilizing.
But we were not politicians. We gave you the idea.
Yes, we don't need sugar. We need more honey.
Now, moving forward, again, it has to be established that the conditions today are better, and so we should be getting better. You don't have oil prices going down. In fact, you're having 20% more than you projected. You don't have cocoa prices going down. You are actually now exporting about 167,000 barrels of crude oil, when in the past it was less than 100,000. So it means you are actually making more money. The only reason why you are unable to do some of these things that you promised to do is because you didn't listen to advice when you were going around promising all sorts of freebies that you were told were unattainable. So it is time to concede and then perhaps do some realignments so that we can all move forward. On the Auditor General,
we just have 1 minute. All right, so guys, let me just take 2 of your comments and then we will call it a day. Very interesting discussions we've had. We've not had time to look at the Auditor General and the so-called special forensic audit which indicted a number of ex-government officials. We heard about 800 million cedis was misappropriated. We just couldn't have time to look at that. A number of your comments, with the kind of penetration the Chinese are aiming at, that is 6,000 communities and 900 public viewing places, and watching Chinese content, Ghana will soon be China. Local content and patriotism approaching danger zone. Hashtag a big issue. This is from Jibril. Who in this country will even agree to give Nanado 8 years and they are demanding 40 years? Ghanaians are already fed up with them and even wish there is an opportunity to kick them out today. This Shiraz seed of Selu from Chiriponi. All right. So on that note, we want to conclude today's edition of The Big Issue. We came to you live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Luther in Adabraka in Accra. We have been live on City TV and 97.3 City FM around the globe. We have been live on citynewsroom.com. My guest this morning, Prince Crystal, who is an executive council member of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association. He brought us some perspectives on the Ministry of Communication, StarTimes, and the GIBA and pass regarding the DTT migration. Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini, NDC, minority MP from Tamale North, broadcaster, still a broadcaster, doing many things. And Franklin Cudjoe, president of Imani Africa, and Sydney Casely-Hayford. And for the purposes of today's discussion, also Kung Fu, member of Occupy Ghana, and a financial analyst. My name is Selom Adunu, and I wish above all things that thou mayest I wish above all things that thou and be in good health, even as you're so prosperous. Have a good time and great weekend.
State media is reporting soldiers, dignitaries and spectators were targeted. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has blamed a terrorist group affiliated with Saudi Arabia for the attack. Let's bring in Saeed Kamali Degan, the Guardian newspaper's Iran correspondent. Saeed, what are your contacts in Iran telling you about what happened there this morning?
I mean, 4 assailants disguising themselves as military personnel opened fire from behind the viewing platform. You know, there were, as you mentioned, military personnel have been killed as well